A town meeting being, a quorum being present, this town meeting is called to order. On the early morning of the 18th of April, 1775, a mounted messenger named Martin Herrick rode into town to alert John Brooks, the newly elected captain of our Minuteman Company, that the British troops were on the march to Lexington and Concord. As Herrick rode off to his next destination, bells pealed and signal shots were fired into the pre-dawn sky to alarm Reading's militia. This group of amateur soldiers from all walks of life, farmers and tradesmen, teenagers to 60-year-olds, grabbed their muskets and headed off to Concord to face the world's most powerful army. They had little in the way of training and supplies. They didn't even have a country to back them up yet. And I have to imagine they felt they had virtually no chance of victory. But they went anyway. We all know how that turned out, but many don't know the prelude. The war certainly started on that April morning, but the revolution had its origins in the years leading up to that fateful day as colonials, particularly here in eastern Massachusetts, saw their rights eroding. The movement manifested itself in town meeting, this unique form of government that had already existed here for more than 130 years. Reading was more deliberate than some of its neighboring communities, but they did not ignore the problems, and they ended up at the same place as the rest of Massachusetts. The first signs of unrest at our town meeting came on September 1773, when the townspeople discussed a letter from Samuel Adams asking a series of questions. What are our rights as men and British subjects? Is Parliament supreme? Is there not a natural law higher than any law that precludes and infringes on our rights to consent to be governed? Is it right that Parliament decree that we be tried in an admiralty court rather than by our peers? Reading took no action beyond the discussion. Then on May 7th, 1774, a session at the West Parish Meeting House, right on our common, they discussed Article 9, put on the warrant at the request of the Boston Committee of Correspondence. It asked that Reading people show their minds relative to letters sent by that committee. Reading townspeople reacted by standing by their rights as British subjects to fair trials and elected representation, but went no further, yet. By July 11th, words got stronger. Every new measure of Parliament increases our distress. We cannot give in without giving up a part of ourselves. An executive right of taxing would be but little better than slavery. On November 1774, Reading went all in. When the Crown suspended our elected government in place in one form or another since the 1630s, the people of Massachusetts established a provincial Congress, an extra legal body separate from the royal governor. The die was cast. On December 27th, Reading Town Meeting switched its allegiance to the new Congress, appropriated money to that body instead of the royal government, and further adopted its sentiments as its own. It adjourned until January 5th, 1775, when the town voted to form 4 militia companies. Much as with the militia members who marched to battle 250 years ago this month, those attendees at town meeting also put their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor on the line. In our current practice of local participatory democracy, we maintain and renew a tradition of self-government practiced here since 1644. By gathering together tonight, we honor and embrace the town meetings of 250 years ago. At its annual town meeting just a few days ago, the moderator of North Andover said that these local democracies, by their nature, taught Americans the virtues and responsibilities of self-government. It was through the conduct of town meetings that the colonial American public embraced the unalienable rights of self-determination, which in turn sparked a revolt and fueled a revolution. The voices then raised, actions taken, financial support committed, and lives and liberties pledged at many town meetings in the Commonwealth remain our worthy heritage. For more than a century before the Revolution, and in the past 250 years since, our citizens and town meeting members have maintained and strengthened our town meeting. Tonight, you occupy those seats, those same positions, as we carry on this amazing form of self-government. And now I ask all those who are willing and able to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now I would like all of those newly elected or re-elected members to stand for the oath of office. Repeat after me. I solemnly swear that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform all the duties incumbent on me as a town meeting member according to the best of my ability and understanding, agreeably to the Constitution and laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and to the charter and bylaws of the town of Reading. So help me God. Congratulations and welcome or welcome back. The clerk will now read the warrant.
To any of the constables of the town of Reading, greetings. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby required to notify and warn the inhabitants of the town of Reading qualified to vote in local elections to town affairs to meet in the following place designated for the 8 precincts in said town.
Mr. Haley moves that we dispense with the further reading of the warrant except for the return. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, the motion carries.
By the virtue of this warrant, I, Laura Jem, on March 14th, 2025, notified and warned all the inhabitants of the town of Reading qualified to vote in town affairs to meet at the place and the time specified by posting attested copies of the town meeting warrant in the following public places within the town of Reading. Precinct 1, Warren Killam School. Precinct 2, Reading Police Station. Precinct 3, Reading Memorial Light Department. Precinct 4, Joshua Eaton School. Precinct 5, Reading Public Library. Precinct 6, Burroughs School. Precinct 7, Birch Meadow School. Precinct 8, Wood End School, and Town Hall. To the date of posting being not less than 14 days prior to the April 8th, 2025, the date set for the town meeting in this warrant.
Thank you. Before we begin, the chair would like to remind town meeting members and inform newly elected town meeting members about some of the basic rules and how we will proceed. 1, if you wish to speak on a particular motion, please line up behind one of the 2 microphones, and I will call on them in the order that they line up. Points of orders and points of personal privilege may be recognized even if the speaker is not in line at the time. We do not read main motions as long as they are presented exactly as printed in your copy of the motions. Not the printed copy of the warrant, but the motions. We assume that the printed motion is the motion that is made unless there has been a change. In that case, the body must be informed. Keep in mind all other motions, such as amendments, must be presented to the body. We will put the proposed amendments up on the screen so all can see it. Keep in mind it is the responsibility of the town meeting member to craft the wording. 3, before speaking, please state your name and precinct. 4, members are limited to no more than 10 minutes. The chair will call on people in the order that they line up, taking those who have not spoken yet first. Non-members may speak, but only after members have first had the opportunity to do so. Non-member proponents of a motion may speak with the permission of the body. Remember to try to stay away from personal attacks, or for the most part, personal references. We are here to discuss issues and not personalities. Keep in mind, these are our neighbors, and we're all trying to do what's best for the town. After debate has proceeded for a while, we may have someone move the previous question, or simply move the question. This is a call for debate to end. That motion itself is non-debatable, and we will proceed directly to the issue of stopping debate. It takes a 2/3 vote. The chair will not recognize that motion from a person who has just spoken. In other words, if you want to move the question and stop debate, that must be the only thing you have risen for. Amendments. We may have people offer amendments to motions on the floor. When a motion for an amendment is accepted, we move directly to debate on the proposed amendment. Once disposed of, we return to the debate on the main question. Other proposed amendments may be entertained as well. Again, I emphasize it is the responsibility of the town meeting member who proposes the amendment to craft the wording. We need the exact wording before proceeding to debate and vote. I emphasize that town meeting members must be sitting in the lower portion of the hall if they want to be recognized as town meeting members and have their votes counted. I remind the counters to keep that in mind when tallying votes. A rush of members to find seats just before the vote to be taken is very confusing to our tellers. Again, if you are a town meeting member, please sit in the front section or you will not be recognized or your vote counted. If you are not a town meeting member, you do have to sit up in the back. You cannot sit down here unless you are one of the employees. Instructional motions. Article 3 is placed on the warrant by the Select Board and calls for instructional motions. These motions instruct various boards or individuals to do whatever the motion calls for. Proposed instructional motions were due at Town Hall last Friday. We will have, I believe, 6 this time. Although the article for instructional motions comes early in the meeting, Article 3, we generally lay this on the table and take it up at the end of the meeting, whatever night that happens to be. There is often confusion between 2 particular motions, indefinite postponement and tabling. Let me give you a brief explanation of the difference. Indefinite postponement is a motion asking the body not to vote on a particular motion during the life of this town meeting. Although it is thought of not so much as a vote against a particular issue, but rather a postponement, the result is the same. Voting in favor of indefinite postponement has the same result as voting against the main motion. If an indefinite postponement carries, the main motion is defeated. A motion to indefinitely postpone is debatable. Tabling is used for another purpose altogether. Tabling temporarily puts a motion aside. It can be brought up again by anyone moving to take it from the table at any time before final adjournment of the meeting. This motion is non-debatable, although the chair will allow a brief explanation as to why the motion to table has been made. Adjournment. There are 2 types of adjournment. At the end of an evening, we adjourn to a time certain. Tonight, for instance, when we are done for the evening, we will presumably adjourn until Thursday. When we are done with all the business of the town meeting, we adjourn sine die, which translates to without day. In other words, the meeting is complete. Finally, I'd like to explain how things are likely to proceed over the next few hours and the next few days. Tonight, we begin with Article 2 of the annual meeting warrant, and we'll proceed as far as we can. I do expect that immediately after the business of Article 8, there will be a motion to take Article 14 out of order. If that happens, we will take a vote on moving it at that time. Otherwise, we will proceed as far as we can tonight, skipping by Article 11, the operating budget. We generally like to begin a night session with the budget, and we'll do that presumably a week from tonight. When we finish for the evening tonight, we will adjourn until Thursday. On Thursday, however, we will immediately adjourn the annual meeting until after the special meeting scheduled for Thursday that deals with the Killam School and recal. When that meeting concludes, we will return to the annual meeting. If we have time on Thursday after the special meeting, we will continue where we left off. If it is too late to return to the annual meeting, we will adjourn to Monday evening. At that time, we'll begin with Article 11, the operating budget. On Monday, after the budget is complete, we will continue with whatever is left in the annual warrant. If necessary, we will finish the following Thursday. I believe we are now ready for business under Article 2, the state of the town. Mr. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And thank you, town meeting members, town staff, and fellow Reading residents. My name is Christopher Haley. I'm currently the co-chair of the Reading Select Board. The town of Reading is thriving thanks to the dedicated leadership of Town Manager Matt Cornelis, Assistant Town Manager Jane Wellman, Superintendent Dr. Milachevsky, somewhere, and our exceptional police, fire, as well as all of our other departments. Chief David Clark recently marked 30 years with the Reading Police Department, while Chief Greg Burns, retiring in May after nearly 40 years with the fire department, deserve our gratitude. Let's applaud them both. Stepping into Chief Burns' role is Richard Nelson, a 28-year veteran of the Reading Fire Department, who earned the highest score in a rigorous selection process, a testament to his commitment and Chief Burns' mentorship. Please join me in applauding Fire Chief Rick Nelson. Reading's commitment to our community is evident in tonight's warrant book. Article 8 sets spending limits for revolving funds and establishes a new Elder and Human Services revolving fund, supported by user and rental fees to bolster programs for seniors and vulnerable residents. Articles 9 and 10 implement the HERO Act provisions, tying veteran property tax exemptions to the Consumer Price Index and providing additional exemptions up to 100% of the base amount, showcasing our support for veterans despite minor revenue impacts. Infrastructure remains a priority, with Article 4 updating the FY25 to 35 capital improvement program. Proposed adjustments include $143,000 an increase in FY25 traffic signals, vehicle lift replacement, and a firewall upgrade, a $388,000 increase in the FY26 for artificial turf design, crosswalk enhancements, and road paving, and $23,000 net change in FY27 for facilities master plan and a fire station elevator replacement. These investments emphasize transportation, safety, facility maintenance, and technological advancements. Other initiatives include Article 13 for infrastructure upgrades at High Street and Haven Street, Article 14 to fund pickleball courts to meet recreational needs, and Article 15 to support a lead replacement program for public health. The debt schedule reflects ongoing projects like the Parker Middle School roof, as well as the Reading Memorial High School turf, with debt service expected to decrease over the next decade, indicating prudent borrowing. On Thursday, a special town meeting will address the needs of the current and future generations, reflecting on a 2018 address by former Select Board Chair Barry Berman. He highlighted the urgent need to renovate or rebuild the Killam School and the Senior Center. 7 years later, we're nearing a resolution. The Select Board unanimously voted to put these projects to a townwide vote on May 13th. But why? First, in my opinion, these significant investments should be decided by the voters and not just the full board. Second, holding an election early saves nearly $400,000 in design costs for Killam and roughly $75,000 for this Recal Center, a savings that outweighs the cost of a potential election. Reading's strength is clear, and its future lies in part with embracing artificial intelligence, or AI. From streamlining meeting notes to analyzing complex documents, all at a significant cost savings. AI is already transformative. I tasked AI with reviewing our 228-page town meeting warrant book, and it gave Reading an overall B+ grade. The only barriers to an A grade were our $59 million OPEB liability, which is 14% funded as of June 30th, 2024. And the other is pretty much obvious, and that is our reliance on free cash. With $19 million in reserves, we're facing challenges. $6 million is needed to balance FY26's budget and $7.4 million for FY27. To avoid a future override crisis, we must plan now. The Finance Committee, chaired by Joe Carnahan, details this in the budget summary, page 23 of the warrant book, or page 31 in the digital copy. I urge you to read it and recognize that Reading's challenges are not unique. What sets apart is how we respond. One example is on growth and how we can proceed with the Eastern Gateway area. A staff-led committee is ongoing, followed by a formally created committee sometime in the fall. Changes must start at the top, though, and the Select Board, co-chaired by Melissa Murphy and me, will lead with unprecedented transparency and collaboration. We'll empower residents by allowing public comment on every agenda item in real time, mirroring the school committee's success, including motions in the packet as RMLD does, among nearly a dozen other reforms. We hope other boards and committees will follow suit. As we approach FY26, Reading remains a vibrant, inclusive, and forward-thinking community ready for continued growth. And lastly, my wife told me that I was not allowed to joke about the state of the town, that I had to be serious. And just like tonight, I did not get a vote in that either. Thank you.
Mr. Haley moves that we lay the substance of Article 2 on the table. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, the motion carries. There's a motion to lay the substance of Article 3 on the table. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Those opposed, the motion carries. Mr. Cool, you.
Stephen Cool, Precinct 6. I'd like to move that one instructional motion be removed from the table.
Is there a second? Second, okay. You want to explain which one it is, and then we'll
Yes.
take a vote on whether we take it off the table.
I'm sorry?
Why don't you explain which of the
Yes.
ones it is, and then we'll take a vote.
It's the instruction motion titled Report on Seized Property and Excess Proceeds from Property Dispositions and Reimbursement to Affected Parties.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to take Article 3 from the table for the purpose of taking up that one article. It is non-debatable. All those in favor of taking it from the table, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And chair is in doubt. Okay, let's see, who have we got for counters? Mr. Sasso, could I have you on the right and the Finance Committee? Mr. O'Neill, could you do the center? I know there weren't, what we were voting on, just in case you were confused, we were voting on whether or not we take Article 3 back off the table again. So, because Mr. Cool has asked that we do that so we could take up one particular article. So we laid it on the table. He's asking that we take it off the table. That's what we're voting on. Everybody understand that? Well, it's non-debatable, but I'll let you explain why you want to take it from the table. That's probably not a bad idea.
Thank you. In the last two sessions of town meeting, as I recall, certain instruction motions never made it to the floor, and this, I believe, and with people with whom I've spoken, believe this is important enough that we give it some air tonight and vote on it.
Okay, thank you. Maybe we should try taking a hand count again. Maybe you didn't quite understand what we're doing. But we are voting on taking it off the table again in order to take up one particular instructional motion. All those in favor of allowing that to come to a vote? Right now. Right now. Yeah. Let me explain this again. Article 3 is instructional motions. Traditionally, we put it on the table, which we did. A town meeting member has asked that we take it right back off the table to do one particular motion. And that's what we're voting. So we are voting on whether or not.
Moderator?
Point of order.
Thank you, Angela Binda, Precinct 3. If we take this off the table right now, while Mr. Cool might want to discuss his, it takes them, we can discuss all of them. So we could be here all night discussing instructional motions.
Right, it's a good point, but it's non-debatable, so we need to stop it right there.
Okay.
So, but you,
So
that
my
is
question
a point that.
So my question is, if we do take it off the
Yes.
table,
They are.
it's not just for that, are we opening it up for
Yes.
discussion for all?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, now, do you understand we are voting whether or not to take Article 3 back off the table? Okay, all those in favor of taking it back off the table, which means we're going to discuss them right now, please raise your hand. And those opposed? Okay, the motion does not carry. Okay, so it remains on the table, and we move to Article 4. And Ms. Angstrom?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, town meeting members. The purpose of Article 4 is to amend the capital plan. Approving this article does not fund any of the changes. It just amends the capital plan, whether it be adding something to the capital plan, reprioritizing, or anything like that. It would not fund anything in the capital plan. So in fiscal 25, we have three things that popped up as urgent to take care of. One is $50,000 for Salem and Main Street traffic signal improvements. We've been having some trouble there. And we also had a vehicle lift replacement at one of the DPW garages. It broke down, and a firewall upgrade, and the total of those are $143,000. As you know, we do 5% of our budget debt and capital, and when you last saw the capital and debt plan, the debt plan did include debt for Haven Street. We planned to borrow for it. We no longer plan to borrow for it, and so it made room in fiscal 26 for additional capital. So we have net changes of $388,000. $150,000 is for design work for the artificial turf at Parker Middle School. $100,000 for some crosswalk improvements at Salem Street. $25,000 for an engineering plotter, and an increase of $113,000 in our road paving budget. In fiscal 27, we have some new proposed debt that got added to the debt plan, and it was related to the pickleball borrowing and also borrowing for the artificial turf for Parker. So the net change for fiscal 27 is $23,000 reduction, and that's made up of a $200,000 ask for facilities master plan. We added $283,000 for a Main Street fire station elevator replacement. We have 3 items that we had on our capital plan that we now know the school lunch revolving fund will be paying for, and that is the food service lines for both Birch Meadow and Barrows, and this food service van is all going to be paid from the revolving fund, not out of our operating budget. We pushed out the cemetery dump truck and the highway dump truck, and then $50,000 was added for Forest Street crosswalk improvement design. We had to push out a sander truck, and then we added $181,000 more for road paving. There were no changes to the capital plan for any of the enterprise funds for the 3 years.
FinCom report, Mr. Carnahan.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Joe Carnahan, Precinct 7, Finance Committee. At its meeting on March 19th, the Finance Committee voted 9-0 to recommend the substance of Article 4 to town meeting.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Yes, Mr. O'Neill.
John O'Neill, Precinct 6. I'm assuming that the money for the architectural study for Parker is to replace the artificial turf at some point. But if it's just the replacement, why do we need another architectural study?
Oh, you mean the design work? So what's on the capital plan is design work for
No,
the,
I understand
yeah.
that.
But you're saying, why do we need
That
design?
if you're not changing the design at all.
Who can answer? I'll have Ryan, the engineer, to speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ryan Percival, Town Engineer. The reason that we have this on the capital is so we can do design for the Parker Middle School turf field. The turf field, when it was built back in 2007 and 2008, didn't have to the same standards that we have now with different padding and Brock's padding and stuff like that. So that will all be incorporated into the design for the new field. So there'll be that and construction administration fees, construction administration that's also in that design fee.
But if you, I understand what you're saying, but wouldn't that be assumed into the actual delivery? In other words, the fact that some of these architectural design standards have changed, and I can appreciate that, but wouldn't any manufacturer already be bound and have to incorporate those without some outside entity?
No, because what we do with that design, with the design money, is we also put together bids, specifications, design plans, things that the contractor has to follow. So that's what that design money goes to. And then as a portion of that, that will also go to testing of the fields and things of that nature to make sure that they meet the criteria that we set forth in the specification.
Thank you.
Mr. Arena.
John Arena, Precinct 1. Question on the additional paving in FY 26 and 27. Are those additional amounts due to a change in anticipated cost, or is it additional scope of work?
We're finding that paving is costing us more, so we're getting less done for the budget that we have. So we're trying to add more money to the paving each year so that we can get more done. I mean, costs have increased, so we're getting less for our money. So
So
we
we
found
should-
that we need a higher baseline for road paving.
That makes sense, but we should reflect that that's not added miles or feet of paving, it's simply inflation or the cost of doing business. The funds that are paid for with the revolving fund, is it necessary to encumber those sums in advance of their use next year? In other words, we're going to be using a revolving fund, but at the moment those funds are fungible, they can be used anyway. Is it necessary to reserve them or escrow them in some fashion just so the town knows that they have them in a year from now?
When they order them, they'll encumber them. I mean, sometimes there's a wait list to get what we're looking for, but yes, they would encumber them first.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Mr. Sasso?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Sasso, Precinct 2. Can you go back to this original slide for the FY26 changes, please? Thank you. So, first question, so the design for the artificial turf, is that tied to the debt line item for starting in FY27?
No, that's actually $150,000 out of our capital budget to design the project, and then the borrowing would be whatever the project is.
Right, no, I'm sorry. So you put an estimate into the debt for $1.5 million starting in FY27 for, I think it's 10 years. To cover the estimated cost of the
actual
charge.
project.
Okay, Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make a motion to modify this article if I can.
Okay.
I'd like to delete the $150,000 from the FY26 general fund changes.
Okay, can we get that put up on the, we have someone that would put that up on the board? Is that possible to?
Who wants to take that artificial turf off? Do we have the motion?
No, okay, so it's, make sure we have the right one. The $100,000.
It's it's the first line item there, $150,000 under FY26 general fund.
Oh, I see, I'm sorry, good, I'm glad you said that. So the first one. Everybody understand what that is? I guess we're not able to put it up on the board. Okay, is there a second to that? Second. Mr. Sasso?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So I may sound like a broken record this evening and the rest of this town meeting, but what I just heard from Chris and what we've continued to hear from FinCom is that while the town is strong with where we are today, we are heading into a brick wall. And we need to start making some priority decisions about what's important and what we're going to fund. And this $150,000 seems like small, but it's leading into another $1.5 million of debt that's going to be pulled out. I think the community and the town is expecting us to look at this critically. Town meeting is the legislative branch that funds the town. And we have to take that responsibility seriously. And I'd like us to start looking at this budget in a much more critical way. And this is a start. And I have a few other things. People probably saw some of my instructional motions. But I'm really trying to look at this budget and figure out ways for us to start adding runway to what will ultimately be a requirement for an override. We need to push that out, and we need to find ways to make room in the budget to fund the priorities. And right now, what I also heard from Chris and the rest of the town is our priorities are Killam and Recal. So how are we going to fund those? We're planning to do a debt exclusion on these, and yet we still have budget in our in-levy debt that these sorts of activities are funding. And so I'd like to see us start with a strong message to the community that we are actually watching out for them, and we are looking at this budget in criticality, and we are making priority decisions. Thank you.
Now, further discussion on the proposed amendment. Okay, Mr. Bacci, you?
Not on this one.
Okay, I'll come back to you as soon as we go back to the, okay, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Linda Snow, Doxer, Precinct 1, Beaver Road. I just caution us not to save money at the expense of safety. Having been on the school committee, not now, but having listened to the discussions of the safety of turf as it deteriorates, planning in 2027 That's 2 years away. And if we're already thinking about that, I would like to hear from the school and the town about the safety of the turf to put off fixing it. Because there are people of all generations that could be hurt by a deteriorating turf, and we need a long-range plan, and it sounds like that's what we have right now. It's not tomorrow it's being fixed, but we need to plan for that. Thank you.
Mr. Arena?
John Arena, Precinct 1. I saw on the earlier slide, this was pulled forward. Did I read correctly from 2032?
Yes, it was pulled forward because it is a safety concern.
Okay.
And
Will
so
there be,
that was brought to light and it was brought forward.
is anyone in the presentation prepared to respond to the motivations to pull it forward, or is it purely a financial presentation?
Ryan can answer.
Ryan Percival, Town Engineer. This turf was originally put in 2007. The useful life of turf is just over a decade. You can probably squeeze out a little bit more with routine maintenance. We're way past that. And as was spoken, what ends up happening is the turf monofilament starts to break down, and then we get less and less turf that infill that's in there, and we start to reduce that impact hit rating. We have not tested it yet. If we do test it, the fear is that without going forward and having a replacement, it could close that facility down.
Mr. Wise?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Wise, Precinct 4, Chair of the School Committee. To address Linda's issue, and you already heard it, yeah, it's not just a school issue, though, it's also a rec issue, right? Parker is used extensively by our recreation programs in addition to the schools. Most people historically, our women's soccer team, our girls' soccer team has played there, and our boys' soccer team has played at RMHS. So you have a bit of a disparity there, too, to think about as this goes on. We don't want some of our athletes to have subpar facilities versus the newer facilities. Now, I understand Mr. Sasso's concern from a cost perspective, but I think ultimately, 20 years on a 10-year thing, we've bled out how long this facility can go. And it's not just our high schoolers, it's many of our middle schoolers in particular use that field extensively for a lot of different sports. So we got to be careful between safety versus cost savings and being smart about what we're trying to do.
Ms. Angstrom?
I just wanted to mention that this is incorporated into the 5% of our budget. So if we were to take this out, it would just be replaced with some more capital, something else. So it wouldn't be used towards anything but debt or capital, and I think that needs to be made clear.
Discussion on the amendment, proposed amendment? Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Phil Dardino, Precinct 3. Save money for the school budget. Design work for artificial turf. Design work's expensive. Save money for the school project. $50,000? Really? Thank you.
Further discussion on the proposed amendment? Are we ready for the vote? We are voting on the, yes?
Not for this.
No, he's going back. When we get to the main motion, he'll be talking. Do you have something on the amendment? Okay.
Karen Herrick, Precinct 8. Kudos to the first speaker for summarizing some of the challenges we're going to be facing in the next couple of years. I am concerned about how much we are pulling forward at this point, and I am very concerned that we just funded a wonderful field house floor that was not even having identified health risks, if you will, or injury risks, but we didn't pull this project forward instead. So I have concerns about this. So I haven't decided how I'm going to vote on this amendment, and I have a question for the town accountant. So just to confirm, so our capital spending policy is 5%, and nothing wrong with that. We've been good about that, and that's how we keep our facilities in our town in good repair. But I wonder if it's time for the Finance Committee to help us to really sort of measure these other priorities that were mentioned, because building a new elementary school and a new centralized RISE preschool program, that's quite an expensive capital undertaking, and so is the recal project, and they're both very important priorities. But so we're still. So my question is, and I want us to think about this. So you're absolutely right. We have a policy. On the other hand, we are investing in more capital already outside of our budgeting 5% policy. So we have some wiggle room to do this. And also, I'd like to just ask the question, how's the grant applications going from the school department? Because we have lots of funding from the surtax.
Point of order, out of topic.
No, I'm asking a question on the amendment related to the design for the artificial turf at the Parker Middle School. And if anybody in the room wants to answer it, that's fine. So I think I'm still on topic. But it's my last question.
Okay.
Okay, the question is, design for artificial turf at Parker Middle School. I want to understand what grants are being applied for. We have a surtax, very large surtax balance, which will be dedicated to educational and transportation resources. I want to know what other efforts we're making to try to go out and find funds to fund these important priorities. I'm not here to argue that our engineer made a great case that this artificial turf field is end of life. Thank you.
Mr. Wise, or Ms. Angstrom, did you? Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you raised your hand. Mr. Wise?
I don't know who wants to answer that first question. There was like 5 questions in that statement, so I'm just going to refute quickly one portion of that. There wasn't. Okay. I'm going to be very close to the mic, but I can be very careful about that too. So first of all, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Wise, Precinct 4 School Committee. Part of that statement started by saying that the field house was being done without certifiable issues. That is incorrect. We specifically brought that there were injury issues with the field house. Yes, we did. We specifically also
we have
talked
one
about
speaker at a time, please.
the ADA issues with some of the other state stuff that was there, including the bleachers, et cetera. There was plenty of other reasons that were part of that. To this question, nobody is talking about grants in this particular question. To apply for a grant, there has to be a specific grant that would be applicable to this particular thing. In addition, as we go through this is FY26. We're talking about what is generally a procedural motion here. We can't apply for a grant for an FY26 at this point in time anyway. When time comes, if there is something, and I'll defer to the town accountant and the CFO of the schools, we can apply at that point in time, but that is not what is a part of this necessary debate.
Over in the center.
Brendan Gray, Precinct 6. This may be a naive question, but if this is for Parker Middle School, why isn't the school funding it?
Mr. Wise, do you have an answer?
While it is Parker Middle School, it is technically not operated and owned by the schools. It is technically operated and owned by the towns, by the town.
Okay.
Mr. Carnahan?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Joe Carnahan, Precinct 7 and Finance Committee. Especially since the Finance Committee was invoked a minute ago, I wanted to try to clarify some things. So this is mostly building on a comment that Sharon Angstrom made about this being part of the capital. So there is a very long-standing policy that we allocate 5% of our operating budget to capital expenses. These are large, but not large in the sense of requiring a debt exclusion or a tax increase to pay for them. This is an extremely prudent policy that has served us very well because it ensures that we fix things before they break when it is more expensive to fix them. So in terms of the dreaded O word, an override, because yes, I did use that word in the budget summary and no one will ever let me live that down. Here's the thing, is that to cut capital spending in order to try to avert an override, that only works if we were to start spending less than 5% of the budget on capital, which I believe would be a very unwise decision that would cost us more in the long term. So for that reason, I will be voting against this amendment. Thank you.
Further discussion on the proposed amendment. Mr. Sasso?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Sasso, Precinct 2. I just want to respond to the comments about the capital 5%. I understand that 5%. One of the things that I'm trying to pull out of the budget here, including the debt line that starts in, this is tied to the debt line, about $1.5 million expend that happens starting next year, or excuse me, FY27, I apologize. I'm actually planning on Thursday night, as part of the Killam project, to propose a $5 million in levy debt expense to pull out, so that we're communicating to the community that we're taking money out of our hides to support these projects, and we're not just sitting here holding our hands out every 5 minutes asking the residents for money, because there's been no cuts. I mean, listening to all the finance committee meetings and select board committee meetings and school committee meetings, nobody's talked about taking any money out of the hides. It's like, oh, let's just keep asking for money. So that's what the purpose of this. This is a philosophical issue. You may not agree, and that's fine. You can all vote against it, but that's the purpose of this, is that we're taking money out of here so we can fund the priorities of this community. And if those aren't the priorities, then fine, vote them down. Thank you.
Mr. O'Neill?
John O'Neill, Precinct 6. I really appreciate the case that, Mr. Sasso is making, but I don't think this is the place to draw the line. Because not only is the schools use it, but since we live within 2 blocks of Parker and I'm walking the dog by it all the time, youth activities are going on there all day, Saturdays and Sundays. So it's lacrosse on Sundays and it's soccer on Saturdays. And we're talking about, it really is a health risk. I mean, the old turf fields, having coached down there for years, youth soccer, they were dangerous anyway. And now it's just, as it deteriorates, it just makes it that much worse. So as much as I agree that we should be already looking to reduce wherever we can, I don't think this is the place to do it. Thank you.
Over on my left. Yes.
Erin Gaffin, Precinct 4, also a school committee member, but I am commenting as a parent who spends virtually every weekend on that turf. I have children who've grown up playing soccer there. I have another one who referees there. That turf is on its last legs. It is a safety hazard for the kids who are there. It absolutely needs to be replaced. I will say my husband, who's the chair of the Recreation Committee, has been lobbying to get it moved up because he is there even more than I am as a soccer coach, fall and spring. There's so much wear and tear. So unless you have walked that turf or witnessed the children playing on the turf recently, I really don't think we are in a position to start sacrificing the safety of children in town for the sake of trying to stave off an override, which is gonna happen anyway. So I will definitely be voting against this, and I hope others will as well.
Further discussion on the proposed amendment? Yes?
Andrew Gregory, Precinct 2, Pleasant Street. Motion to call to question?
Would you want to call a question? Okay, we have a motion to end debate. Is there a second? Second, okay. Let's see, I started appointing counters earlier. Mr. Sasso, would you do your side and the front? Mr. O'Neill, could you do the center? Mr. Struble, could I ask you to do the other side of the center? And, ooh, and Mr. Pacino, the select board and the, okay, this is a vote to end debate. And the select board, yes. This is a vote to end debate on the proposed amendment. All those in favor of ending debate on the proposed amendment, please raise your hand. Excuse me, please rise. I'm sorry. Give you a chance to stretch.
$29.
29.
37.
37.
36.
36.
44.
44. And those opposed to moving the question, please rise.
Six.
6.
2.
2.
2.
2.
2.
2. The vote being 146 in the affirmative and 12 in the negative, the motion carries and debate is ended. We will now go to a vote on the proposed amendment, which removes $150,000 for the artificial turf at Parker Middle School. All those in favor of that amendment to remove that money, please raise your hand. Those opposed? And the motion does not carry. Okay, and now a very patient Mr. Bocci can
Alrighty, Carlo Bacci, Precinct 5. Just a clarifying question on the 200,000 facilities master plan on 2027. Yeah. Yeah. That is not the funding for the master plan that we're going to be doing, is it?
Yes, it is.
It is. So
It isn't?
well, it says facilities. It doesn't say.
It is a facilities master plan. Are we talking about a different master plan?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not familiar with what he's referring to.
So this is the facilities master plan that we've been talking about for years. I believe the select board and CPDC are talking about a different type of master plan that they're starting to take and be underway. So there is a difference there, although the two are pretty much related as far as I know. And the facilities director is here tonight too, if there's any questions as well.
All right, so if that's the case, I'd like to strike that because we're going to need about the same amount of funding for our master plan. So I think to spend $400,000 seems ridiculous.
So are you proposing an amendment?
Yeah, to
Okay.
strike the whole amount, please.
Okay, got it, the 200,000, okay. Is there a second? Second, okay. Mr. Bocci, you have any more?
No, I just wanted to clarify if that was the same or different, and now I know that it's different. And so I don't see the need because we're going to be asking or funding the master plan, in which we'll be forming a committee in the coming months. And that's going to require a consultant, whether it's MAPC or someone else, about the same amount.
Okay.
So that would double the amount.
Okay, further discussion on this proposed amendment? Ms. O'Neill.
Mary Ellen O'Neill, Precinct 6. I don't want to vote on this until I understand what this request is for, because a master plan that the Select Board and CPDC are considering is for the entire community. It would cover, you know, conservation, roads, schools, whatever. This seems very specific to our buildings, so we can't vote on this until we understand what this is about, and then where would the funding for what Mr. Bocci is talking about, where is that located?
Thank you. Joe Huggins, Director of Facilities. So what we're planning on doing, as everybody probably knows in this room, is we had the Permanent Building Committee do an assessment of all the town and school buildings 5 years ago. And they came up with a rating index for condition of each facility located within the town. This request right here is for us to have an architectural firm come in, use that assessment tool, but also look even deeper into, with the school department, what the future enrollment's going to be, what the condition of the buildings are, and then rank them on which one should come first as far as what's our next school project going to be, and then what's our next town project going to be, so we have like a roadmap for the future. That's what this is for.
Further discussion? Mr. Bocci?
Joe, thank you, but don't we know that already?
We do internally. We have our ideas of what building probably should be next on the school side and the town side, but with that, we're going to get budgetary numbers also for replacement costs of the different facilities across the town. So that's an important feature for planning down the road.
I don't disagree, and maybe that's going to be more in depth than the master plan, but, and I do recall now that you mentioning this before at a meeting with PBC, but I just think it's a big ask, and I think maybe Jane or Matt can help us on the funding for the master plan, because we haven't asked for that yet. We kind of know the rough number that we're going to need, but it's about the same amount from what I've been told. So It's a big ask. This is different. I'm glad you got up there and explained it, but I think we can do this internally. It's just my opinion.
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Jane Wellman, the Assistant Town Manager. Thank you, Mr. Bocci, for the question. For the generalized master plan conversation, there is some funding left over from the funding town meeting appropriated for the 3A consulting that we did. I don't remember off the top of my head how much that is, but some of that was left over because we didn't spend everything that town meeting appropriated for consulting for the MBTA Communities project. So there is some money left there. Part of the conversation that's gone on about the overall facility, the overall town master plan, is that we have a number of pieces already in place that would apply into a master plan. So we're not entirely sure what that full cost would be. And part of what would go into a town-wide master plan would also be this facilities master plan. That's information that's in there, affordable housing, planning and zoning. There's a number of pieces. We have some of that work already done. So the scope of the full community master plan might not be as high as we think it might be. We do have some funding, and we need to pursue that scope with CPDC, the select board, and so forth. So it's a little bit of an unknown. In terms of bringing that particular piece forward, we haven't got it in the FY26 annual budget. It might be something that's brought forward in the autumn, in subsequent town meeting. Okay.
All set? Further discussion? Yes.
Marlena Beta, Precinct 3. Facilities plan or design plan, things like that, they sound like really involved consulting fees. They comb data, they make predictions, they're crunching numbers, it's very involved. But I don't understand, it sounds arbitrary, 200, why isn't it a $20,000 fee or $50,000 fee? Is it 1,000 hours worth of work? Is it a whole team dedicated? I mean, I don't know what, it's a lot of money.
We have an answer? Okay.
Thank you. It's quite a bit of work. It's probably a year's worth of work for the architectural firm to come in, and they're going to be combing over all of our buildings, looking at plans, looking at our maintenance records, speaking to stakeholders. We're going to have several meetings, so there is a lot of work, and at the end we're going to get a package that we can use, like I said, that'll be sort of like a roadmap for the town.
Just, I don't mean to take up too much time, just, is that an average cost? I don't know.
It does fall in line with that type of study from what we've learned.
Mr. Berman?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Barry Berman, Precinct 6. We're really fortunate that we have a permanent building committee that can study the state and, of all of our facilities so that we can get ahead of the kinds of things that, that we can be prepared to spend money on. So these buildings are all going to need to have major renovations at some point or another. I think we own 14 or 17 buildings between all the schools. If you think about it, and the life of these buildings are maybe 50 years, that means we need to be thinking about replacing or doing a major renovation of buildings like every 3 or 4 years. Having a roadmap and a guide as to what's next, the cadence of what we need to do, helps the finance committee, it helps us as voters figure out, well, what are our priorities? What do we need to spend money on? What are some of the things that we may be able to cut back on? So having that, I think, is an incredibly useful tool, because, I mean, just look between Recal and Killam, it's hundreds of millions of dollars, right? Having the roadmap to understand what's next, what we're going to need, helps us prepare. Being prepared is going to ultimately save us money. So cutting out $200,000 from a facilities master plan, maybe it should be $150, maybe it should be $225. I don't know. I trust the folks who put this together that that's enough to get it done. We're going to save millions in having that information at our fingertips, and then we as voters can decide what's going to be important. So I'm not going to vote for this amendment. Thank you.
Ms. Murphy?
Thank you, Melissa Murphy, Select Board member. I'm not sure that I agree with cutting out $200,000 from the facilities master plan, but what I've said multiple times now is that I think the facilities master plan and the town master plan need to be done together. And so, like Carlo mentioned, and I'm not really sure how this will work, the money that we use for our town master plan, we should be including with the facilities master plan. I feel like if we do our town master plan without knowing the answers from the facilities master plan, it doesn't really give us a great look of the overall town. So I would like to see, and I'm not really sure how we do that, I don't know if we change it from FY27 to sooner, but I think these two master plans need to be working together and not at separate times. Thank you.
Mr. Arena?
John Arena, Precinct 1. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I sense the body is slightly confused what this is and why it's needed. I had, in the spirit of trying to help, Joe, this is principally inward looking at the systems and the wear items within the building and estimating remaining useful life. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's one of the items, yes.
Is it the resource that would do this work? They're all PEs, professional engineers, so they're giving you stamped plans or stamped opinions, and they have their certification backing that up. True?
Yes, they do.
So that's something a permanent building committee may or may not be able to do, but none of them are getting comped to stamp a plan. Those are at best informed opinions. Is that correct?
Correct.
Folks are a little confused when you talk about enrollment and the building proper, not the infrastructure pieces, the electrical, the HVAC, et cetera, but the building proper, the cinder blocks, the parking lot. Does that also include the physical aspect of it as well, or more the internal operating portions?
When I say enrollment, they would come in and they would meet with, for instance, like the school department to talk about their future enrollment, projections, and then how spaces are getting used for different, programmatically in each location. So there's going to be a lot of those type of meetings going on, which will drive it. And then on the town side, the same thing. How are the buildings being used? Where are there space concerns, not just mechanical type of issues?
That seems to speak more to expansion of the building in the future, not to maintenance. When you talk about, say, changes in use, are they also involved with the changing of the programmatic part of it, or
no? But I think that they need to do that to get a full understanding of how the buildings are getting used.
Okay, so it's more to get baseline, not to necessarily respond back with a comment about enrollment, et cetera.
Correct.
Okay. I kind of think as this is the inward-looking master plan inside, and the plan the CPDC would develop or help to develop would be the externally looking, the external to the town, the grounds, et cetera. There is a common synergy between them both. Having them, it's not a perfect overlap, but having them both done in one document would seem to be wise. There may be some economic scale that helps us too. Is there any particular reason why we would not want to consciously plan to have them both line up that you can think of or anyone can speak to?
We have an answer?
I think they should. We're talking about two master plans. I think they should line up as best as possible. The overall master plan will look at sort of everything in the town. Facilities, we just look specifically at buildings, what the building needs are. The building needs are not everything in the town. Other master plans incorporate other issues, even going as far as like arts and cultural priorities, just priorities of the town that is part of the master plan, and that's what the current one says. I think they could work together. There's currently very limited funding or hardly any funding for the new master plan we're talking about. We're still working on that. That was just asked in recent meetings. This master plan has been asked for several years. Joe has been asking for this with the permanent building committee. So that's why it's here before you today.
I take your answer to be that you don't believe there's much synergy between the two. There's obviously complementary, but there's no common content. Or little common content.
I think there's some, for sure. I can't tell you exactly, without knowing what the new master plan is going to look like and what people want. It's a public process. So,
when do you think this town would come back and ask for funds for the town master plan? Would it be FY28? Do you have an assessment of when you would be back? I'm a little surprised that we don't at least have it on our radar. It feels like the master plan is several years out of date for the town, so it's
right. Yep. It has been on our radar. It's something that we want to renew, periodically, but it wasn't brought up as a priority until recently when we said we're going to form a committee and actually go for a master plan. So, so that's why the funding piece will come into play.
When the current master plan was developed, was that 2007, the last master plan?
I believe so.
I think the plan of record was to do it every decade. We're approaching, twice that now, right?
Sure.
So it seems, anyway, understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next over here.
Hi, Carrie Perry, Precinct 6. The roadmap that you're referencing, what period of time lookout would you see that roadmap being inclusive of? Like how far ahead?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question? We didn't hear it that well.
Sure. It was mentioned that one of the goals of the facilities master plan is to have a roadmap of investments over a period of time. What would be the time that the consultants would be targeting for that analysis?
I would say probably the next 20 years or so. Joe, do you have about 20 years?
So, I mean, we would be spending a lot of money to get a 20-year lookout, and it sounds like there would be some repetitive work where they were saying, talking to stakeholders, different things that could fall under the other plan that Carlo referenced. It sounded like the committee has maybe prioritized a few different buildings, some different things. I think, maybe it's time to reconsider just prioritizing a few of the buildings for analysis versus doing this huge analysis, looking over 20 years where things could very much materially change in the next 5, 15 years where this could not be as relevant. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Doxer?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mark Doxer from Precinct 1. So I think maybe talking a little bit about terms more clearly would be helpful as a starting point. I think people have rightly talked about this facilities activity as more of a roadmap. I think if we called it a roadmap, it might help us all out here a little bit, just in terms of how we're following through here. The roadmap is laying out from a buildings point of view, what are the needs, when are they going to happen, and how do we plan that out in time, essentially, to make sure all those things are happening. On a much higher level, the select board has been having a lot of discussions about what is more traditionally called a master plan, or at least what the town last did as a master plan with CPDC and others involved, that looked at what really are the priorities of the community as it relates to buildings, as it relates to housing, as it relates to a variety of other issues. So first thing, I think it would be very helpful just to kind of think of them in slightly differently. This is a roadmap for the facilities that we have and we're planning right now. And separately and coordinated with that is a master plan for the community and setting who's going to set the priorities, how they're going to happen. It's much more of, I think, Matt, you said it as a public process. I think that's what's needed. What hasn't happened at all yet is to talk about how those may overlap, how they might get coordinated. And I think that may be what we're kind of exposing here right now, is seeing what that is. I think that we have to do this roadmap absolutely internally. It's an absolute necessity. It's saved us all sorts of money going forward. At the same time, the select board has been talking about setting up this broader plan, but talking about doing it on a pretty quick timeline, if I understand correctly. And I'll let current board members talk to that as opposed to me. But somehow they do need to get coordinated, and there does need to be a discussion of here's where we're heading, these are the priorities, and we need all of this information on that facilities roadmap, I'm going to call it, so that we can figure out how to take it forward. So whether this is the right amount or timing, I think part of what needs to come forward faster is what's the community's larger master plan going to be, and how is it going to work together with this? Thanks.
Ms. Alvarado?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Vanessa Alvarado, Precinct 5. Thank you, Mr. Doxer, for answering a lot of my questions. I have a question for the staff for this facilities roadmap. What happens?
Excuse me, could you put the microphone a little closer?
What happens?
That's good, thank you.
Yep. So for the staff, what happens if we do not have this facilities roadmap?
Do we have an answer? Ms. Wellman.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Thank you for the question. So it's a good question. What we won't have without a facilities roadmap is the ability to plan as well as we'd want to. What we see in other communities is sort of benign neglect. We don't do that in Reading. We don't do that here. And that's why this is brought forward. What happens in other communities, in an adjacent community, for instance, they had to suddenly close a school. a preschool and had to scramble for space. We don't do that in Reading. And doing this assessment helps us understand what is our school priority? What is our town building priority? How do we plan for that? How do we as a community have the conversation about, does this school doesn't need to be replaced, but it may need renovations in these areas because we don't have enough classroom space that are at current standards. For instance, these are for instances. We are running out of storage space in another building. How are we going to address that? It doesn't mean that you're replacing the building, but it is how are we going to address these needs? Do we see synergies in some of these needs? And so that's what the facilities master plan, that roadmap, as Mr. Doxer said, entails. And so you put that together, and that allows us to make financial plans, capital planning, and we bring that forward as a conversation in the community. And so that's what that's for, and it's a really specific look at the assets that we invest in a community, so we have the money that comes out that we're investing in, and that we're investing wisely. We can't answer all of those questions. We have a tremendous permanent building committee made up of fantastic professionals, but to a previous speaker's point, they're not putting their engineering stamp on that plan. And so that's what we want to do, because that helps inform town staff, it helps inform the community about the decisions. We need to make sure as we go forward that we have invested in these buildings. What are we going to do in the future? Because they need maintenance, they need renovation from time to time, they may need replacement, as we've seen with the Killam School project. So I hope that answers your question.
That's wonderful, thank you. So I think I have 2 points then. So one, it sounds like this is, the facilities roadmap is an attempt to be proactive in managing future needs and expenses so that they don't turn into an emergency.
Correct.
Unexpectedly.
Correct.
Oh, I'm seeing nodding, okay, great. So that seems like a worthwhile investment to me. The second part that some of the people had addressed is the question of the community or town-wide master plan, which is a bigger conversation that the select board has been having. It seems like if this gets funded now, then when the broader community master plan conversation continues, this can be folded into that.
Correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
That's
I
correct.
will oppose this amendment, thank you.
Over on this side.
Thank you. Lynn Arena, Precinct 1. My question is on the amount. I understand how the assessment can be helpful and can save us money. But you said something about a year's worth of work, and that seems like maybe 1 or 2 salaries in 200,000. I'm wondering if this is a placeholder or if we have a proposal for an engineering firm, or if the 200 might turn into 400 or 500.
We do have a proposal from an architectural firm that lists out the services that they will provide, the hourly rates for the architectural people and the PEs. So we do know what this is going to cost, and it will not cost more than $200,000. That's a not to exceed number.
Thank you.
On the side.
Phil Dardino, Precinct 3. Move the question.
Move the question. Okay, we have a motion to end debate on this proposed amendment. Is there a second? Second. Okay, I ask my counters again. This requires a 2/3 vote. All those in favor of ending debate on the proposed amendment, please rise.
Twelve.
12,
25.
25.
29.
29.
39.
39. And those opposed to ending debate?
Four.
4.
6.
6.
4 with 2 abstentions.
4.
28.
28. The vote being 105 in the affirmative, 42 in the negative, the question has been moved, and we will proceed to a vote on the proposed amendment. It's a majority vote, so all those in favor of the proposed amendment, which removes the 200,000 facilities master plan, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And the motion does not carry. All right, now we go back to the main motion under Article 4. Is there any further discussion? Yes, Ms. Binder.
Angela Binder, Precinct 5. I have, I'm looking at the $100,000 for the Salem Street crosswalk and the increase in road pavement, and you said that the increase in road pavement isn't more roads, but it's just costing more. We had a discussion in our Precinct 5 precinct meeting about how sidewalks are, what kind of money goes to sidewalks and how sidewalks are prioritized. And I know that there's a sort of street list, but who decides how sidewalks are prioritized?
Ms. Engstrom?
Good question. So the department heads and I and the town manager, we get together regularly to talk about the capital plan. And one thing that's been highlighted is that the streets are deteriorating because the money that we're putting towards paving just isn't enough. It's costing us more. And so we're defaulting to putting a lot more on that line. Sidewalks have also been advocated for by DPW as an area where we need to start allocating more funding. And so if you look at the capital plan, you start to see us increasing that number. But right now, I think that the roads are the higher priority, and so that's where we've been putting most of the excess that we can find. But we are fully aware that the sidewalk work needs to be done as well.
I'm not going to make a proposal for this budget, but I think a lot of people are in agreement that the sidewalks are really deteriorating too, and maybe more money should go to sidewalks. Thank you.
Ms. O'Neill?
Mary Ellen O'Neill, Precinct 6. I want to clarify if the pickleball proposal is in the capital plan before, because you mentioned that it's likely that that will be taken out of order and will be discussed and voted on before we look at the budget. And I know it's in the capital plan in the new budget, but if it's not in that yet, I don't want to be talking about it unless it's been put into the capital plan. So is it?
Ms. Engstrom?
I believe it is in the capital plan if you refer to the pages in the back of the book.
I did look. I didn't see anything for fiscal year 25. I couldn't find it there.
So it wouldn't be fiscal 25 because we're working on design work for it, and we're asking for a debt authorization based on that design work. And so the borrowing wouldn't happen until, I want to say fiscal 27 would be our first debt payment, because the borrowing would happen sometime in fiscal 26 if we were to proceed with that project.
So where is it in the capital plan is what I'm
Take a look.
asking. Is it in there?
So that doesn't get shown up on there. This is just capital.
On page 208 of the capital plan, pickleball courts are on there, and they are highlighted in purple.
For what year?
So the borrowing would happen in fiscal 26.
So it's all right to be talking about and voting on it. We don't need to include it here, that this is something that's going to be part. Is that what
It's-
you're saying?
It's okay to, we haven't discussed the debt authorization, but it gets added to the capital plan in advance of asking for the debt.
Okay, thanks.
Back over here.
Steve Herrick, Precinct 8. I just want to make sure we have clarity on exactly how this process works here in terms of the capital plan. The dollar amounts that we see here, the changes, by the way, FY '25 begins when? Just make sure we're all on the same page about our fiscal year. That is happening or?
July 1st, 2024, so that's the fiscal
So
year
we're
that we're
right at
in
the
right
end.
now.
So
Yep.
that 25 is, we're talking about the tail end of 25.
Yeah,
We're
it's from
tacking this stuff
April
on.
from now till June
Right.
30th.
So when I looked at the capital plan, the capital improvements plan on page 203, it looks like we're already over our 5%. We're at 5.57%, in excess of the finance committee's recommendations. Is this incremental, I assume, to that, since this is an amendment that is not in this number right now?
So we build the budget with a minimum 5% of our budget being debt and capital. These three items that we're adding here would be in excess of that 5%, but the minimum is 5%. And sometimes things come up that we do have to prioritize because of what they are.
Okay, thank you. So, but this then would be funded out of free cash, basically. Is that what we're doing here?
Yes, it will be in the next article. This doesn't, this article is to just amend the capital
Oh,
plan.
I understand that.
Funding would come in the next article,
I've
yep.
heard this every year for a long time now. This doesn't fund it. But this is, so this is going to be coming out of free cash. The 25 piece will, to spend this year. And the 388 and the adjustment to 26, do those bring us directly to the 5%, or does that 388 push us over? I assume it does, because we're
It brings us to the 5%.
It
So as I
exceeds?
mentioned, when last time you saw the debt and capital plan, we
Right.
had debt service for Haven Street. We took that off.
Yep.
And that means we need to do more capital because to get to that 5%.
Oh, is
So
this
it's a
bringing us-
rebalancing.
This is bringing us back to 5%.
Exactly, because
Okay,
we're not
that's-
going to have as much debt.
Sometimes we look at these things, I feel like we're doing them in a vacuum. We're not really seeing where's this put us in line with our overall spending objectives. The other thing that I think we're often missing is what are we giving up for this stuff? And that's why I hate looking at things, we look at one line versus another here. So that's very helpful, thank you. I have one specific question on a line item on the firewall upgrade. I assume that's a computer firewall. Was there an incident that led to this, or is that just somebody made an assessment that our software has gone funky on us and we need to upgrade it?
So the technology director did request the firewall. I'm not sure exactly what the request related to, so I can ask him to come up.
Hi, thank you. Kevin Frola, the CTO for the town. Yeah, we did have two unexpected events this year, and that left the firewall's firmware out of sync with the system software, and corruption resulted in both instances. And so this was unexpected and has it bumped up, and that number is pretty accurate. We have a proposal for it.
Okay. Were there costs associated with those problems or breaches that occurred, or?
No costs associated.
Okay, so, but you're just protecting yourselves in the future. Okay, thank you, I understand.
Yes, on the other side?
Hi, Bob Poulter, Precinct 6. Would like to propose an increase in spending for approximately $100,000 for trash bins. I think as a body, we voted in 2023. We voted in $900,000 to spend on trash bins. Those were just deployed. I don't know about other folks, but I'm finding the recycle bin is adequate, but the trash bin is not. If you have a family.
I cannot allow that. That is outside the scope of this article.
Well, we're talking about general funding.
I know, but you're adding something that hasn't been presented to the town.
We can take away, but we can't add?
Yes.
As a body, though, we voted this in. So maybe the question is there any excess money from the deployment of those trash bins that could be used to purchase more for residents or deliver more to residents?
Ms. Wellman?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. No, that budget line item it will be completely spent.
So the next option would be to bring it in as another proposal through the select board?
No, we have in our FY26 operating budget that will procure additional carts if needed. Residents who wish to purchase an additional trash cart to meet their household needs can do that through our website, and we'll continue to order. And we have a supply left over from our initial procurement. of, I think, mostly recycling carts and maybe 64-gallon trash carts, is that correct? So we have enough to meet the need that we understand that we have right now. And if we need to do more, we have that set aside in the FY26 operating budget.
Well, thank you. The point was, I think as a body, when we voted that in, I think we missed the mark on understanding the volume of trash generated by each individual home. I know we put a restriction on that. I think it would be wise for Reading to relook at that and to offer a second bin for folks who would like to have one.
We do offer a second bin for folks who want to have that, but it is at additional cost.
Without the additional cost.
Without
without the additional
I
cost. I think
understand.
that would be appropriate.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
Yes, so on the side.
Hi, thank you. Anika Scanlon, Precinct 4. It's a problem of me bringing my computer. All I get to do is search. I see in the November 2023 warrant a item on the capital account that was $40,000 for Salem Street crosswalk improvements. So that was in the November 2023 town meeting warrant for capital improvements. And so I guess one of my questions is, for this Salem Street crosswalk improvement, what happened with the previous capital improvement, and is this for a different part of Salem Street, or can you just explain why we're going back to Salem Street?
Mr. Canales?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Yeah,
I believe what was
thank you.
done in 2023 was the money for the design, and this is for the actual work. So we took the money and we hired an engineering firm to design the crosswalk and safely design it, and now we're ready to essentially build it. So I think that's...
Any further discussion on the Article 4, the motion under Article 4? None appearing. Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of the motion under Article 4, please raise your hand. Those opposed? And the motion carries. Business under Article 5, Ms. Angstrom.
The purpose of Article 5 is to amend the fiscal 25 capital plan. You can see that we've done it. Ooh, they were cute. Your dogs came up. So we've broken this down by the lines that you would vote the budget. Under B99 for benefits, we're asking for an increase of $334,000. This is due to the fact that our MedX health insurance, which is for our seniors that have a supplemental plan for their Medicare, went up about 19% as of January 1st. And so we need additional funds to get us through June 30th with that increase, because that's higher than what we had projected. Unemployment is trending high, and we need an additional $30,000 there. We have a police officer who's seeking a disability retirement, and that can be somewhat of a lengthy process. Our standard practice is to set up a budget in the benefits area and move the person's salary to that benefits line to free up budget within the department so they can start the rehiring process, which can be quite lengthy, especially in public services. So in this case, it's $104,000 that will be moved from the police budget to the benefits line to allow them to start the process to replace this individual. Under C99, that is the $143,000 that we just discussed on Article 4, those three items that we're looking to add for fiscal 25. Under F99 for FinCom reserves, FinCom had approved some reserves to be moved from their reserves for additional expenses, one related to election workers and the expenses at $60,000, and then traffic signal repairs at $20,000. So approval of this would allow them to have the $200,000 that they start the year with, so that when we get to the end of the year, if there's any unexpected deficits, FinCom has funding. The vocational school, Minuteman Regional, we had a budget of $45,000 for that vocational school. When we build the budget, we don't know how many students are going to be there, and apparently there are no students at that school this year. And so I'm looking to reduce that budget by $45,000 to help us pay for some of the ads. In public services, we had some open positions throughout the year, some savings due to attrition, and we have a $75,000 savings there. We're looking to use that as well. Veterans aid for many years has been trending low, and in this particular year it's trending low, and we're looking to use some of the savings to help us fund some of the ads. In the finance department, we did have a position open for a period of time, and there's a savings of $40,000. We're looking to use that savings towards our ads as well. Later this evening, there is some HERO exemptions for veterans exemptions, and we need to do some work to build a bridge between the system that they use to assess and our Munis system to account for this new exemption. So that's an additional $6,000. In the fire department, we have, I believe, 5 or 6 firefighters retiring, and when they retire, we have to pay out whatever they have accumulated in vacation time. When we build our budgets, we don't know when people are going to retire, and so we don't have excess built in for buyouts. And so we have to add $100,000 to pay out the vacation time of these retired firefighters. And then we've increased $25,000 for overtime, because when we're short on firefighters, there's a minimum manning, so overtime naturally goes up when we have open positions. Rodent mitigation at $35,000. A couple months back, the health department had requested from the select board additional ARPA funding that was left over for rodent mitigation, but it wasn't enough to cover the whole year. So whatever they allocated, the remainder is this $35,000 so that we can get this program started for fiscal '25. Public Works also had some attrition savings of $75,000 that we're utilizing and reducing that budget. And snow and ice was not a great year for us. The last couple years have been very mild. This year was not as mild, and we are running a deficit, so we need another $275 for snow and ice. Street lighting had additional funding that we're taking away at $25,000 for a net operating expense increase of $688, which we're proposing to use free cash for.
Okay, we have Finance Committee report. Mr. Corum, okay.
Jeffrey Corum, Finance Committee on Precinct 7. At our meeting on March 19th, 2025, the Finance Committee voted 9-0 to recommend this article to town meeting.
Thank you. Further discussion on this motion? Mr. Arena?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Arena, Precinct 1. On the I-91 finance wages, that's a position that was unfilled, and so the salary was unspent, and you're reprogramming it here. That position will remain open in FY26, true?
Yes, but it's been filled now, but the period of time that remained
Okay.
vacant saved us the $40,000.
I'm dating myself, but there was a time in town when the state of Massachusetts, the only account you could intentionally underfund was snow and ice. And there was a vehicle where you could approach the state for excesses in that budget, overruns in that budget. Is that still the case, or has that been dispensed with?
I've not heard that, so I could look into it, but I know we have always funded our overage for snow and ice from free cash, and we can raise it on the recap, but I don't know of any other funding source for it.
It was kind of a quirk of state law, but it was a vehicle, essentially it was an emergency provision. If you had an excessive snow and ice budget, you could appeal to the state for a separate budget.
So there is definitely FEMA money that we sometimes
It
get
wasn't
for
FEMA.
bigger storms?
Yeah, it wasn't FEMA, it was the state. It may be an artifact of history at this point. And on K94, we're completely built out now with all the incandescent lighting is gone. We're now all LED-based lighting.
That I do not know.
It goes to this line in terms of expenses. So there was some reduced spending that came about as we rolled that out that was beneficial to the bottom line. Should we assume there's any more savings there, or no, that it's now fully rolled out?
I feel like there tends to be savings on this line. It could be attributable to what you mentioned, but I was not aware that it's all LED lighting. So we tend to have a baseline there that we don't increase if we're staying in line with budget. And so sometimes there's a little excess in the street lighting expense, and that excess that we're seeing frequently could be attributable to the LED lighting.
Thank you.
Further discussion? None appearing. Are we ready for the vote? This requires a majority vote. All those in favor of the motion under Article 5, please raise your hand. And those opposed? The motion carries. Business under Article 6. Ms. Angstrom.
we have a slide for it? So Article 6 is to approve prior year bills. We currently do not have any prior year bills, so we're looking to table this article.
Mr. Haley moves that we lay the substance of Article 6 on the table. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor of laying it on the table, please raise your hand. Those opposed, motion carries, and it is laid on the table. Article 7, Ms. Angstrom.
The purpose of Article 7 is to move the funding that was approved under the fiscal 25 budget for OPEB to the OPEB Irrevocable Trust. We tend to do this in April so that we can use the OPEB funding as a hedge for health insurance if we need it. We obviously are looking to transfer what we had budgeted. $200,000 for the general fund, $85,000 for water, $25,000 for sewer, and $10,500 for storm, for a total of $320,500 to be moved to the OPEB trust fund. And we use this as a hedge because OPEB is not mandated. We don't have to fund it every year, but we do our best to put as much as we can until we have pension fully funded, and then we'll redirect funding.
FinCom report. Mr. McDonough?
Joe McDonough, Finance Committee, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. On March 19th, the Finance Committee recommended 9-0 to recommend the contents of this article to Town Meeting.
Further discussion? None appearing. Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of the motion under Article 7, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And the motion carries. Business under Article 8, Ms. Angstrom.
Thank you. Article 8 has 3 intents. The first is to update the general bylaw 6.5.2 for the inspections revolving fund. This revolving fund was created by this general bylaw, and we update it every town meeting. And the items that are stricken are the projects that have been completed that we're no longer monitoring. The items that are in bold are new projects that we wish to use the inspections revolving fund to monitor. The second is to add a new section to the general bylaw to add a new Elder and Human Service revolving fund. This would be a fee-based programming. Right now, our ARPA funding is covering a lot of the services, a lot of the programs that we are offering to our seniors, but prior, they would pay a fee to, say, participate in a program like yoga, and they would use those fees that they collect to pay the expenses. This revolving fund would allow us to put the fees we collect into the revolving fund and then pay the related expenses for these programs out of that revolving fund. It's just a much easier accounting tool. And finally, the last is to authorize the spending for these revolving funds that fall under Section 53.5 of Chapter 44. You'll notice that all of them are listed with their balances and their spending limits, and the spending limit for all of the revolving funds remain unchanged from the prior year. The only addition is the new Elder and Human Services with a spending limit of $15,000.
FinCom report. Ms. Downing.
Thank you, Mary Ann Downing, Precinct 4 and FinCom member. At our March 19th, 2025 meeting, the FinCom voted 9-0 to recommend this article to town meeting.
Is there further discussion? Yes. Pardon? Yeah, oh yeah, right.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jesse Arnold, Precinct 6 Bylaws Committee Chair. On April the 9th, the Bylaw Committee voted 5-0 to recommend the content of Article 8 to town meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Arena.
John Arena, Precinct 1. Just a question on method. Is it always customary that we list the forthcoming building projects as part of this motion, as opposed to just a general statement about new construction permit fees being remitted?
So the inspection revolving fund is only used for the larger developments that we're going to need to monitor more closely, and so not every development should show here. It would only be ones that we think are larger and would need more monitoring from us. So that's,
thank you.
Yeah, that's why you see them.
Ms. Snowdoxer?
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I just have a clarification. In reading this, is this indicating that there are going to be more fees than there have been, or just in case, or fees that already have been
Are we talking about the
collected?
revolving fund or the elder services?
The elder services.
So currently, for the last few years, there was money allocated from our ARPA grant to pay for senior services and programs. That funding is running out, and so we will probably be returning to a fee-based programming, and that's what this fund will be doing.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Not appearing. Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of the motion under Article 8, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And the motion carries. Ms. Murphy.
Melissa Murphy, Select Board Member. I'm just proposing tonight that we take motion 14, or Article 14 out of order. I know that we have a lot of residents that are attending tonight to potentially participate in discussion on that motion. I also know that there are several town meeting members that won't be able to make it to the next meeting that are principals in this pickleball discussion, because we wouldn't be able to discuss this until next Monday. So I'm proposing to take Article 14 out of order tonight.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion on taking Article 14 out of order? Not appearing. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry about that.
Hi, Andrew Gregory, Precinct 2. As much as I'd like to vote on the proposal for pickleball courts, one of the main concerns raised this evening has been our financials and whether or not we should be following through with some of these larger projects. So I believe that we should wait until after the Killam and Recal votes before we decide on something that is I want to say less important, but less necessary.
Further discussion on the proposal to move it out of order? Yes.
Eileen Manning, Precinct 5. I am in support of moving this article out of order. We do have, I believe it's over 50 members of the pickleball community who are supporters, and many of them donors towards this project, hoping to be here to be able to support it. And I'd like to respect their time that they've come to do that today.
Okay. Yes.
Phil Dadino, Precinct 3. I'm sure that my comments are not going to be popular with a lot of people, and pickleball is very important to a lot of people, but I really think we ought to do the business of the town first. So I'm really like to see us finish the business of the town and then do pickleball in order when we're supposed to. I'm in favor of the pickleball proposal, but I think we ought to do the business of the town first. My view.
Further discussion on the proposal? Yes. Ms. Binder?
Angela Binder, Precinct 5. I agree that we should take things in order. I know that there are people here. We're all here. We will be back. And I know that there's a few people who also would like to participate in the discussion, and they're not here. So I don't think that we can make exceptions, because some town meeting member is not going to be here one night, but another one is here. So I'm in favor of going in the order. And also I do believe that it would be important to hear the discussion on Recal and Killam first. Thank you.
Ms. Alvarado? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, well, Mr. Colton?
Michael Coltman, Precinct 4. I'm strongly in favor of moving the pickleball discussion forward. I think it is part of the town business. I'm sorry. I think it is part of the town business to address the need for pickleball. Pickleball has been on the master plan. It was in Birch Meadow and is needed to be taken out for noise issues. So we have finally found a location, so I think it would be good to get this discussed.
Yes.
Vanessa Alvarado, Precinct 5. I think we've heard a lot about pickleball in the last few weeks. But we've also heard tonight a lot about financial concerns and being fiscally responsible. I have not decided how I'm going to vote on this. I'm looking forward to the presentation and listening to people speak. But we do have two very significant items before this body, and I would like to have those discussed before we vote on this. Thank you.
Mr. Pacino?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Phil Pacino, Precinct 5. I'm here for I believe I've been here for 40 years, quite truthfully. I heard the previous speaker spoke earlier this evening about priorities and what we have in front of us. We have 3 major projects, if you count this as a major project. We've got Killam, we've got the senior center, and we've got pickleball. You know, I went to schools here in Reading. I support the Killam. I'm kind of on the fence about the senior citizen center. I really think we need to take those first and set the priorities, and then we can move on to the pickleball. So I intend not to vote to take this out of order.
Further discussion? Are we ready for the vote? This is a vote to take Article 14 out of order and take it up right now. All those in favor of changing the order, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And it does not carry. Okay, so next is Article 9. Let's see, Mr. Cornelis.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So Article 9 and Article 10 both deals with something called the HERO Act. And these articles, they're local acceptances, and certain portions of the HERO Act would pertain to Reading if we accepted them tonight. These are tax exemptions for veterans, for our veterans on their homes. Our tax assessor is unfortunately out of town tonight, but is in favor of this. And our veteran agent, Will Valliere, is here tonight, sitting in the crowd. He is very much in favor of this to help our veterans out, and he's lent his full support to this item. The Board of Assessors voted unanimously to support both articles and send them to town meeting, so we're here before you tonight on these articles. Article 9, the one that's before you currently, if passed, simply would allow for a cost of living adjustment to an existing exemption tied to the Consumer Price Index. So the example being, if a veteran receives a $400 exemption, the CPA increases by 5%, the total exemption is $420. So it's just something relatively small that we could do that would mean a lot to our veterans community. And when I saw that it was passed on the state level, I thought it would be a good thing to do in Reading, and so we're here before you tonight on these articles. So the first one, Article 9, that's the summary. Thank you.
Okay, FinCom report, Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Sullivan, Finance Committee and Precinct 7. At our meeting on March 19th, the Finance Committee voted 9-0 to recommend the substance of Article 9 to town meeting.
Okay, further discussion? Bylaw, I'm sorry. I keep forgetting it. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jesse Arnold, Precinct 6, and Bylaws Committee Chair. On April the 9th, the Bylaw Committee voted 5-0 to recommend the content of Article 9 to town meeting.
Okay, now further discussion. I'll start over here.
Charles Stanley Moran, Precinct 7. So it says that certain veterans qualify, and it lists certain sections of the general law. Can you briefly describe which veterans qualify? Thank you.
I think it does apply to all veterans, but it's certain exemptions that they get. You know, so it depends. You know, some veterans are, you know, percentage disabled, 10% disabled, 100% disabled, and so that would, I think that's the distinction there. But Will is up here, and maybe he has comments on that. He knows better than I.
Will Valliere, Veteran Service Officer. This only pertains to all veterans that have a disability rating of 10% or greater.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Grant.
Hi there, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Tom Grant, Precinct 4. Has there been any, can you give like a ballpark as to the dollar size of the impact of adopting Article 9?
Yes, for Article 9 and Article 10, the dollars would be about $60,000. However, that's paid for through what we have, it's called an overlay for tax exemption. So that's covered through the tax exemption overlay. And according to the tax assessor and the CFO, that would be easily covered through that fund. So.
Thank you.
Yes, on the other side. Oh, Ms.
Hello,
Carey?
Hi, Megan Fiddler Carey, Precinct 1. I love that this exists, and I just wonder how many veterans are currently in Reading that we are serving with this.
I couldn't give you a figure as to how many veterans. That would be something that the assessor would be able to better answer than I. As it stands right now, it is a very small percentage of the veteran population.
Further discussion? Not appearing. Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor, please raise your hand. And those opposed? The motion carries. Business under Article 10. Mr. Cornelis.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Article 10 again deals with the HERO Act. Again, if accepted, it would provide an additional exemption for our veterans, disabled veterans. This essentially doubles the existing exemption. So if a veteran currently receives $400 in an exemption, he or she would now receive $800. Again, it's not a lot, but it's something small we could do. And the COLA that I mentioned in Article 9 would affect this, so that would be essentially on top of that. So again, it essentially doubles the exemption that we would have right now. We're allowed to do it, and it's affordable, and would help our veterans quite a bit.
FinCom report. Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Sullivan, Finance Committee, Precinct 7. At our March 19th meeting, the Finance Committee voted 9-0 to recommend the substance of Article 10 to town meeting. Thank you.
And do we have a bylaw committee report?
Yes, we do. Jesse Arnold, Precinct 6, Bylaws Committee Chair. On April 9th, the Bylaw Committee voted 5-0 to recommend the content of Article 10 to town meeting.
Thank you. Further discussion? None appearing. Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor? We do. Okay, Mr. Arena.
Sorry, just so I understand, Article 9 authorized the exemption. Article 10 doubles the base. Does Article 9's math then on the original exemption, or is it on the doubled amount?
It would be, so Article 9 is essentially a COLA increase, the cost of living increase.
That I understand.
Yeah, and so it would be on the entire amount. So if we doubled the amount, say it was 400, we doubled it to 800, then it would be 5% on top of that.
On the 800, and that 60K you cited earlier would become the 120K in that case. Is that true?
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Under Article 9, you mentioned about a $60,000.
Yeah, yes.
That would become 120,000.
No, it's 60,000 for both articles. It would be both articles.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Further discussion? Yeah.
Thank you. Linda Snowdoxer. I just want to clarify, so the 60,000 would fit under that overlay you mentioned? Yeah. Both of them, this double extent?
Yes, it would fit under the overlay.
Thank
It's called the
you.
overlay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Not appearing. Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of the motion under Article 10, please raise your hand. And those opposed, the motion carries. Business under Article 11. Mr. Cornelis.
That's the budget, so that would be.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Haley moves that we table the substance of Article 11. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor of tabling Article 11, please raise your hand. Those opposed? And Article 11 is laid on the table. Article 12, Mr. Cornelis.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So Article 12 deals with the acceptance of 413 Main Street land for sidewalks. And essentially, people are probably more familiar with this site than they think. This is the McDonald's site that was recently redone in 2023-24. During the planning process and the survey, it was found that a portion of the town sidewalk along Bolton Street was actually within the private property boundary of 413 Main Street. So we're trying to correct that and have it fully in our control. So acceptance would correct that problem, so that we can have the entire sidewalk. So we're just talking about 261 square feet of sidewalk if approved, and we will accept the parcel as is. This could be done by either a gift or a friendly taking, but we're asking for a 2/3 vote on this article. In case it is a friendly taking, that's what would be required. So You can see on the map behind me the portion of the sidewalk that, it actually is the sidewalk that we would be taking, so.
Okay. Any further discussion? Not appearing. Are we ready for the vote? It requires a 2/3 vote, so I'd ask the same counters that we had before. All those in favor, please rise.
$29.
29.
44.
44?
46.
46?
37.
37. And those opposed?
0.
0. 0. 0.
0.
0. Was there-
0.
0. Vote being 156 in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, the motion carries. Business under, do we have a question? No. Business under Article 13, let's see, who's making that presentation? The town engineer, okay. Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Monroe. The purpose of Article 13 is to discuss the road improvements and streetscape improvements on High Street area and a portion of Haven Street area.
Excuse me, it's hard to hear.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. The purpose of this article is to discuss Haven Street and High Street road improvements and streetscape improvements. This goes back a few years now, maybe a couple decades, where we looked at the Haven Street area in particular after phase 1 of the downtown improvements. Haven Street, High Street was considered to be phase 2, but that was pushed off for funding purposes at that time. Around 2007, the Smart Growth District was established, I think, in that time frame, and subsequently it's been updated in 2017. Since the onset of that downtown Smart Growth District, we've seen a lot of development come into that area, which we are anticipating. Since we've had a lot of that redevelopment, the area has had a lot of need for improvements, not just for street improvements, but also for our utility improvements, which this body had passed back in 2020 to do around $7 million worth of water main, sewer, and drainage improvements in that downtown area. What we're looking at now is to bring this forward to make some street improvements, primarily on the High Street area. As we went through a process, we've reduced the scope of this project down. You can go to the next. Part of that goal would be to basically bring the High Street corridor primarily up to ADA accessible standards, more pedestrian-friendly crossings, shorter crossings, some traffic calming measures down in that area, a much-needed traffic signal improvement on the Woburn Street and High Street intersection, as well as some aesthetic portions to help blend into the downtown as a whole in the Main Street corridor. In 2019, Beta Group was tasked with doing a conceptual plan, and from that conceptual plan, we brought that idea to the body here to fund $750,000 for design in 2022. With that design, we were able to secure in September of 23 $2.6 million MassWorks grant, which is going towards this project. The total project is estimated to be around $4 million. Perfect. In the green area that you're seeing here is what we're calling the High Street Haven Street project. This is primarily where the MassWorks project is funding, so this is where we are focusing on to make this a project whole. The $4 million will encompass the limits of the work from Woburn Street to Washington Street and about 150 feet into Haven Street. The remaining funding for the $4 million, if you want to go to the next slide, this is the funding breakdown. So the article that we're asking for really is somewhere around the $4 million range. And that's a transfer of funds. There's no borrowing here. The MassWorks portion will make up the majority of that $4 million at 2.6. And then as we go down, you see the smart growth stabilization, which again, this is the smart growth area. That money is brought in from bonus units and things of that nature. We have the sustainability account, which goes hand in hand with economic development and things that we're seeing and doing in that area. The West Street Tippett project, if you remember back in maybe about 10 years ago, we did a massive project on West Street. There was some remaining funds there. This is an applicable project, so we're able to transfer funds over into this project. And the downtown water main improvements were part of that $7 million infrastructure update for utilities. We reprogrammed in some paving costs and road update and reconstruction costs into that because we knew we were going to be damaging the road. So that's the funds that we allocated towards this portion of the project. That makes up the $4 million.
All set? You all set?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Downing, FinCom report.
Mary Ann Downing, FinCom member in Precinct 4. At our March 19th, 2025 meeting, FinCom voted 9-0 to recommend this article to town meeting.
Thank you. Further discussion? Yes, Mr. Pacino.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Phil Pacino, Precinct 5. My question is very simple. In this day of tariffs, what happens if the costs run over the $4 million?
Well, that's a concern that we have for a lot of projects. And when we do our estimates, we do put in a big safety factor as much as we can without blowing the overall budget into something that could be too big. So we've anticipate that the best we can. What we can do is when we build this project out to bid, we could put in certain base bids and alternates to make sure that we're trying to come into that $4 million. We won't go over the $4 million. To say that bids won't come in over $4 million, I can't say that to you. We don't feel as though they will. But again, with the tariffs, we just, something could change tomorrow with that. We don't know.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Arena. I've lost track of which side was next, but I'll
Thank you,
start
Mr.
alternating.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Arena, Precinct 1. The 2.6 MassWorks grant, is it tied to this project and only this project, or is it fungible?
That is correct. When we applied for the $2.6 million for this project, it actually was for a larger project, which would encompass most of Haven Street as well. When we also, at the same time applying for that, we applied for a federal earmark. That federal earmark did not come through. So we reduced the scope of the work just to be around the MassWorks so we don't lose the grant opportunity and a much needed traffic improvement for the High Street area.
The other fund transfers, the Smart Growth, Sustainability Account, and Water Main, those could be used here or other similar projects. Is that true? They're not uniquely applicable here.
As long as they're of similar scope and term, right? That's correct.
You were particular about the TIP project funds needing to, being applied here, but not so much on the others. That's
so I focus on the TIP project because that was essentially a streetscape project, right? So we're transferring money to a like project.
This is the 40R district, and those particular properties on High Street are likely targets. They're one of the few remaining buildings that haven't really gotten the attention from the developer community. It's common, I think, in most developments to make streetscape improvements, betterments, the responsibility of those developers. Is that your understanding as well?
Other communities do have plans in place. Again, we've been talking about plans and master plans. We've started this plan in the High Street, Haven Street area. Without having a development in the area to tie this to, you don't have that improvement that you can link it to.
The opposite's also true. If we make this investment and somebody comes in and they choose to make a change, it'll be undoing the money we've spent to improve High Street, for example.
They would be required at that point to bring whatever improvement we've done at that time back up to our standard.
I guess my point is, if this area is ripe for development, there may be a vehicle to get some of these same additions, particularly the ADA compliance, done as part of those larger projects?
There is within the general scope of where a development may or may not be. So in particular, let's just choose the corner of Chute Street. That was a recent one that was up. We could have tied some sort of improvements there to that development, but only a portion thereof. And without having a master plan or a plan in place, we'd be just asking them to make improvements that may not be cohesive to the whole corridor.
That's certainly true. All right, thank you.
Just a general comment, ask everybody to try to speak more closely into the microphone. It's been getting a little hard to hear. Mr. Doxson.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Sorry, didn't mean to completely absorb it. Mark Doxer from Precinct 1. A number of speakers this evening have started to talk more and more about the priorities that we need to set as a community. And how this body decides to spend its money is a clear reflection of that also. And I think this project, although it is really interesting in terms of what it could possibly do, I think this is one that for me fits lower on that priority list. I think we're about to talk about two very substantial projects in this community that I feel, and we've heard from other town leaders, are the biggest priorities that we have. Given that that's the circumstance, at least in my view, I think this is a project that does not merit getting funded at this time. I really appreciate the fact that we got these wonderful grants. I hate to see grants go to waste. I love Mr. Arena's suggestions on perhaps finding other ways to fund it. But there's about $1.4 million here of funds that could be used for other similar large capital projects. And I would suggest to folks that we consider which are the highest priorities that we want to spend on. And I don't think that this one makes it to that list. Thank you.
Mr. Sasso.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Sasso, Precinct 2. Quick question. I remember when we had this conversation about the project before, there was a discussion about loss of parking spaces. Is that still baked into this proposal?
Yes, so there will be loss of some parking spaces down in the depot area. The requirements, a part of this project is to reduce some of the impervious area, which we have a requirement to do for stormwater practices. But also under the Mass Works grant, we have the responsibility to bring in some shading for heat island effect. That area down in the depot, we're not seeing full utilization of that parking area, and it's just a sea of asphalt down there. And there's some rearranging to add in more accessible parking because we are deficient in that lot down there.
So thank you for that. Also, I understand the project that was tailored where the old Last Corner restaurant is still kind of in limbo. So there are other development activities that may continue to occur, as Mr. Arena was saying earlier, to determine to what extent we might be able to leverage funding from those developers, as well as obviously not wanting to do something and then have it ripped up all over again. I mean, I happen to agree with Mr. Doxler in this one. This is not the priority that I feel we need to be putting our money into, and I'd like to see that funding. I do hate to see us lose grants as well. I think that's obviously something the town has worked very hard to continue with, but I'm not in support of this. Thank you.
Mr. Herrick.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Steve Herrick, Precinct 8. So I just want for clarity here. This grant that we have, is it a requirement of that grant that all of that other funding that you've identified be allocated towards this project? Is it contingent upon that, or can we carve pieces off of it? I know that there's a budget for how much has been scoped, and you've dialed the dollars to that budget, to that scope, but is that grant tied to our contribution?
So there's not a requirement for a match, and Andrew is over there, he can clarify. However, there was a pledge from the town to do a 20% match in kind to be competitive on the Mass Works grant. So at the very least, we would be looking to have 20% of that. However, that would not make for a full project.
Right, so that would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 500,000 or something like that would we be kicking in.
Yeah.
Which kind of could be covered by the tip amount, which can't really go anywhere else. But those other sources of funding could theoretically be deployed on other, there seems to be some discussion here that we could kind of use them on anything. We could use them on schools or pickleball courts, but those dollars aren't quite that fungible, is my understanding. Those different sources that we're looking at here.
Ms. Angstrom?
The funding sources could be used for potentially other projects, if not here. The West Tip project is a very similar project, so it makes sense it would be here. Smart growth could be used for capital projects, any kind of capital project. But if you're moving something that we've borrowed money for, it has to have similar borrowing terms as the project that you're moving it for, similar or longer borrowing terms.
So we're restricted in which other kinds of projects we could reallocate these funds for. So let me ask the question then. Could those funds be reallocated for some of the other major projects that we're looking at here, which I don't know what the lifespan of a downtown paving project is.
I would say that, are you referring to the big project,
Yes.
the excluded projects? Absolutely, because they're longer borrowing terms. They're building projects. They would have a 30-year borrowing, which is a longer borrowing, and they would be, the borrowings that we've done that we're trying to transfer, those would be shorter borrowing terms, but for a bigger project, you could absolutely transfer it.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. I have another, shift gears just a little bit. One of my frustrations, I'm sure I'm not the only one who feels this way, and several people have touched on this already, is that we often pour a lot of money into these street projects, and then within, I feel like, within literally less than a year, somebody's gone in and, you know, started digging up the street project and to connect a gas line or replace another water line or something else happens down there, and before you know it, it's those intrusions into the clean pavement that end up giving us all the potholes and sort of generally not so great roads we often have around here. So what level of assurance do we have that what's living underneath that pavement now is we're done? I know we had a lot of work done down there in Haven Street. It was all dug up for quite some time. Are we done there, or are we going to put down a lot of new pavement and then realize that, you know, we just, you know, 9 months from now, a year from now, oh yeah, now it's time to go down there and hit those gas lines again?
That's a great question. These are things that keep me up at night, believe it or not. I can't give you 100% assurance, right, that nothing catastrophically won't fail on anyone's utility. However, what I can tell you is that the town has invested $7 million in miles of water main work specifically on these roadways, also sewer main work on these roadways, drainage work, and in addition to that, National Grid has extensively done work on Haven, High Street, and the areas that we're looking to do the street improvements on. So we've tried to get in there and do as much of this work as we possibly can. That's not to say something couldn't catastrophically fail. However, we've done our due diligence on this one.
In terms of maintenance, you think that's what's down there now is good for another 20 years? What?
The improvements that we've done on this area probably will last far longer than that. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Sullivan?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Sullivan, Precinct 7. Ryan, can you give us like some additional details on what the traffic calming and pedestrian safety
Could you be a little closer to the mic? Thank you very much.
I'm not close enough? All right. Give us a little bit like more color and detail on what the traffic calming and pedestrian safety improvements proposed at this site would look like?
Sure, absolutely. So traffic calming, there's a million different ways that you can do this. However, in this particular area, like I said, we're taking up some parking. We're breaking up some of that parking with some street trees, believe it or not, that actually calms traffic down a little bit by feeling like it's choking the road down. One major improvement in particular is a raised intersection that would be like a flush plaza at the High and Haven area that will be gradually tapered off. That will give the effect of slowing cars down because they have to approach that. It won't be a speed bump in any way, but there'll be a transition there. Another traffic calming technique that will be used is protected bump outs at crossings for crosswalks. Again, it gives the feeling of choking down the road without doing it, and it slows drivers down. And we also shorten up the crosswalks for pedestrians because there's really long crossings, and that's not really standard to do that.
And are those, the bump outs and the crosswalks, are they going to be included at the Washington and High Street intersection?
So at the Washington High Street intersection, right now there's no crossing there at all. It's really a terrible crossing as you're getting close to that train tracks. We looked at every sort of possible scenario that we could do there, including a traffic signal, and didn't meet the warrants for traffic signals. What we will be doing in that area is some protected bump outs, bringing that corner down from Washington Street a little bit further into High Street. That makes the traffic have to turn around that area instead of kind of coming in as like a slip lane. Additionally, we're looking to put a larger tree at that corner. Again, they help to slow traffic down. We're also moving the crosswalk back a little further away from the intersection because of the trumpeted distance of the intersection. There's a long crossing. We have to move it back. And in doing so, we'll be putting what we call an RRFB, a rapid rectangular flashing beacon there, which is similar to what you've seen some places on Lowell Street. So that'll give more awareness of someone crossing there.
Thanks. I'm glad to hear that. That intersection, I guess, as you said, there's no crosswalks there. I also believe that a kid was hit by a car there in the last year or so. Is that correct?
Was there a traffic accident at that intersection within the last couple of years, Chief?
What I remember in the paper, there was a hit and run with a kid on a bike. Does that sound? Was it a hit and run with a kid on a bike? That's the one I'm remembering. Okay. Okay. So yeah, I think I'm thrilled that we're working on pedestrian improvements here. I think we've talked a lot about priorities. I don't think that there's a higher priority, at least for me, than safety of our kids in town. So I'm thrilled that we're looking to improve these things, and I hope that you guys will join me in supporting this.
Okay, back over here.
Mary Parr, Precinct 5. I live there, I walk there, and real traffic calming is bump ups all over the world, in poor places. I've seen them. Bump ups, not signs that say 20 miles an hour or whatever. But there is no, in terms of pedestrians, because I'm mostly a pedestrian there, I walk around. First of all, there is nothing much there. I mean, there's hairdressers, my hairdresser, and not much else is going on along the street. But the one thing that bothers me most is that there's no requirement for pedestrian safety, of removal of snow and ice from the sidewalks. So it's nice that you can improve the roadway so that the handicapped people that use electric wheelchairs will have a safer road to go the wrong way down to CVS in the middle of the road, because the sidewalks are often not cleared reasonably, especially around some of the bigger buildings. I mean, 30 Haven does a great job. You know, the Masonic Lodge does a pretty good job, but there are other private businesses there. Not so much. So I'm against it because I don't think that it's doing enough for pedestrian safety. You know, and we certainly could have better parking access if the kiosks we voted on and were finally installed and finally gotten right weren't closed off. Thank you.
Mr. Carnahan?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Joe Carnahan, Precinct 7. So I'm a little disappointed in the presentation we've seen because I've seen this presented to Finance Committee and so forth before, and both as a Finance Committee member and as a town meeting member, I saw the earlier presentation with a lot of pictures of the beautiful improved streetscape and emphasizing the shade and the trees. I live about 3 blocks away from the proposed area. Take my life in my hands and cross High Street twice a day for 3 days a week when I have to go to the office. Street is extremely dangerous. It's an absurdly long you have several absurdly long crosswalks to choose from, and a very big street that people drive very fast down. I want to repeat an earlier comment about priorities. I cannot think of a higher priority than safety, and I really want to emphasize the value of that for this. And so I will be enthusiastically supporting this article. Thank you.
Back over this side.
Joy Bolio, Precinct 7. Thank you. So can you go back to the map? So that corner of Haven and High where it turns from green to blue and then back down toward Green Street, that building there is the building that I manage and own a business in, and I have for the last 15 years. And that building has been owned by the same person and in the same trust for more than 30 years. So that building is not going to be in any time soon taken down, remodeled, the street ripped up. It's owned by a single person. So that said, my business is there and I'm there 6 days a week. We need sidewalk crossings, we need better snow removal, we need support so that we can get the snow removal, because I can't lug a snow blower everywhere that it needs to be. All of the curb cuts need to be replaced. The water needs to be managed, because even if I do manage to clean my sidewalk so that I can have my whole corner free, the water doesn't drain, so it's just an ice skating rink. So we're out there helping elderly into our building to be able to come and get their hair done. So the infrastructure in that place, in that corner, I have people coming down Chute Street the wrong direction at least once a week. We had somebody who was crossing from the train over to come into our building. They were hit and now have a traumatic brain injury. The stop sign there is purely optional. People just roll right on through. So that corner, it's a matter of time before it's going to cost the town a whole lot more money than this 1.4. I'll be emphatically supporting this. Thank you.
Ms. O'Neill?
Mary Ellen O'Neill, Precinct 6. I also strongly support this article for a number of reasons. The pedestrian improvements, the whole area, I mean, we're down there often. We walk down there frequently. It's ugly. The train station, the whole depot is, I think, kind of a disgrace for our town. It really needs some beautification, and it needs trees. And as long as you put the trees in that I like, I support this. Because you had talked about putting in column trees. I want things that are shady, that make this walkable, and people want to go down there and get to other parts of town. And I'm very interested in the High Street, Washington Street improvement. There's a lot of young children that live in those apartments there that are out on their bikes. That definitely, and for walkers in general, that it has been a bad intersection for a long time. So I hope that we have a great grant that it's not like giving back $500,000 to the state. This is $2.6 million. That's a lot of money. I want to keep it, and I want to use it here to help us. The snow removal issue is extremely important, separate from this, and I hope we can address it so that people who are interested in that, as I am, we can work on a snow removal bylaw, whatever, however we're going to work this out. But we'll consider voting for this and not using that, which is really has nothing to do with this in a certain way. And don't use that as an excuse not to vote for this, but work on that separately, and I would support that effort too. Thank you.
Yeah. Ms. Brucalacchio?
Sarah Brucalacchio, Precinct 4.
This is a tough one. When I was first reading it, I was really excited about this because I've been wanting to have these improvements. I do own a house on Green Street. I do too adopt an island gardens in that area. I'm there all the time. But with the discussion about the master plan coming about, I'm just wondering if taking on a project of this scope is appropriate at this time, or if we should be waiting for the master plan, because there's still a lot of things that seem up in the air in that area. But then there's also the safety concerns. There's also the issues with snow removal. So I guess one thing I'm wondering is, do we need to actually put in 1.4 million that we were going to do this for? Or could this be dialed down a little bit and then see what other things the master plan might come up with for that area?
So that's a good question. I can tell you the state of High Street that it's currently in now it has to be fixed and replaced at some point. So you're looking at, you know, somewhere up along the lines of like $1 million or a little less than that to pave that area, just to do the bare minimum. If we don't do the project that we have now, that MassWorks money is tied to the particular pedestrian safety improvements, streetscape in the form of shade trees and things of that nature. So if we do dial it back anymore, that MassWorks money would be disingenuous to the project to use that money at that point, because it wouldn't be the project that was set forth to MassWorks.
But it could be used on another project? Is that what you're saying?
That MassWorks project was only specifically for the limits of work that we chose for High Street in that green area. So only in that corridor.
So it's an all or nothing? Is it?
Unfortunately,
okay.
It would be an all or nothing. So if you don't come up to that 4 million, that MassWorks will be turned back.
Thank you.
Ms. Janowski?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Karen Janowski, Precinct 2. That was pretty much an answer to my question. I wanted clarification if we did scale it back, but you're saying it's for $1 million or nothing.
So the improvements that we have there are the improvements that MassWorks approved our MassWorks project on. And those improvements are specific to the MassWorks requirement. And Andrew, if I'm missing anything on the MassWorks, please fill in, but they are particularly around safety improvements of the roadway, pedestrian improvements, shading, reducing of heat island effect. Once we start scaling that back in any portion, we're really not meeting the requirements of the MassWorks.
So even though we're not meeting them, does that mean that we still can use it, or that means that absolutely
I would
not?
have to reply back to MassWorks and tell them that the scope has changed from what they deem to be an appropriate project. And at that point, the funding would be potentially subject to being taken from the town.
Potentially, but a possibility.
I don't want to speak in definitives because
The reason I'm questioning this is because I do wonder if this, for me personally, this is not a priority. And we've been discussing priorities this evening, and I'm much more invested in Article 14 because I really believe that we're investing in the senior population in our community. And so I just want, we've got to determine what are our priorities. And this one, 1.4 million, that seems like a significant amount of money. So thank you.
Mr. Talbot?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Dave Talbot, Precinct 5. So towns are mainly in the infrastructure business to a significant degree. I think I remember you making a
Could you speak a little closer to the mic?
I think I remember you making a presentation on this as much as 15 years ago. When we did the Main Street part of downtown with a beautiful streetscape, and it looks wonderful, and this was always discussed. I want to say it's 15 years about how long this has been discussed and planned.
It may go back further than that, like 2007-ish time frame when it started. Previous town engineer.
And this is we have $2.6 million that we have available to do this. It's a critical piece of infrastructure at the heart of our downtown. This is the depot. This is where you pull in, and the first thing you see of the downtown If you pull in there now, you see asphalt and it's this sun-blasted kind of wasteland. This is going to be a beautiful project, and I agree with one of the speakers about, I remember seeing pictures that you showed at an earlier town meeting of just how beautiful all this would be. Think of the nicest downtown streetscapes you've seen around Massachusetts. That's what you're going to get in the depot area if you vote yes on this and not vote no to throw $2.6 million away. So this is a really important project, and the safety issue is huge down there. It's very difficult to walk around down there. It's 1950s style parking, and it's going to be beautiful when it gets done. I encourage folks to vote for this, and you know, I don't know what else to say. I'm sort of dumbfounded at the negativity about something that's so at the heart of the downtown, right around our depot, our train station, to beautify the town and bring it up in this way. We can do more than one thing, and this is a very, very worthy project. I do wish it was more attractively presented here. The arguments are incredibly strong for it, and I encourage everybody to vote for it. Thank you very much.
Ms. Hillary?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Jennifer Hillary, Precinct 4. I don't want to repeat what the prior speakers have said in terms of their support for this. I also will be supporting this. I agree with the prior speaker's statement that we can do more than one thing, and I know that our town is very anxious about these two huge projects on the horizon. But we have a responsibility as a community to keep the rest of our town functioning, safe. You know, I heard a local business owner speak about the safety concerns she has. I heard you speak about ADA compliance, which is one of the major reasons Killam needs to be redone. We have a responsibility to keep the rest of our town working, and I understand the costs are a heavy burden, and I have seen this body tonight searching desperately for ways to make cuts, but I have not heard really compelling reasons why any of these cuts should be made, including this one. I see the opposite, compelling reasons why we need to continue investing in our community. So thank you.
Ms. Doctor?
Nancy Dr. Pearl Street. Could you clarify a comment you made before about High Street, about just the repair? You said it would be roughly $1 million, not about this project. Could you just clarify that a little bit? Because that really struck me, that's a lot of money to repair one street, and for 1.4 we get all of this. Could you just clarify that again?
Yeah, I hate giving estimates on town meeting floor, but that could be on the higher end. However, I will tell you that that is what we would call a reclamation at the very least for that roadway, meaning the base of that asphalt has deteriorated to the point that we have to reclaim it in place, which is grinding it in place. That's probably the most expensive treatment that we do on a roadway. I think the last quote we had when we just looked at just pavement was just north of 600. So you're anywhere between 6 to $1 million. I don't want to.
No, thank you.
I don't want to set it too short.
But I wanted clarification. Just to do the road, to keep it up to a standard, is going to be close to.
Just to repair it in its existing condition.
Thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Alvarado?
Vanessa Alvarado, Precinct 5. I have questions on two topics. Do you mind if we go to the slide that has the breakdown of where all the funds are coming from? Yeah, that one's great, thank you. All right, so smart growth, stabilization, sustainability, TIP. So none of these are coming from free cash, right? These are all accounts that are dedicated to specific things that this particular project addresses, correct?
These are 2 of the 4 are previously authorized debt, and the other 2 are just funds and just funds.
Okay.
So one's a smart growth fund. That is the smart growth area,
right.
And the sustainability is just the sustainability account. The 2 others are previously approved projects that we had leftover money with.
Okay, thank you. If this article is not approved and it sounds like, reading between the lines, we will likely lose the MassWorks grant, what will these funds, the bottom 5, go towards?
So I can I can speak to the water main improvements one.
4.
That would have to go towards something similar for water. That's what it was approved for. In the borrowing of the downtown water improvements, we did take into account paving of the roadway. That's why we have the ability to use that amount of money on that roadway, because it was broken down that way. So that's specifically for water. The West Street would have to be a similar project of same term.
So it sounds like each of these funds, because of where they're coming from and how they were allocated, have to be used for some kind of water improvement, sustainability, smart growth. I mean, all of these things are being used for their appropriate definition, correct?
As far as we see, yes, these are very appropriate areas to spend the money.
So if we don't do this here, we lose the $2.6 million grant from the state, and we are left with the 1.4 that's going to have to be used for something else anyway.
Correct. At some point, the West Street money will have to be transferred somewhere else.
Okay, so it seems foolish to me to risk losing 2.6 million when the funds have to be used for the same purpose elsewhere. Okay, my next question is for public safety. So when this plan was developed around traffic calming and improved pedestrian access and safety, was RPD involved in that conversation?
Yes, both RPD and fire will also, we've been in front of them for years now going over this project for turning movements for the ladder truck, just for public safety in general. Police have had a lot of concern about the traffic in that area and had a lot of speeding.
So both chiefs are in support of this project?
Chiefs? Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'll be supporting this.
Yes. Back to the other side.
Yeah, Kendra Cooper, Precinct 8. I believe I'd seen an earlier generation of this project that showed the trees and it showed the surfaces, and there were a couple things at the time. I didn't realize that this is this far along now that you want us to be funding it. But one of the things, weren't there pavers? There were like different kinds of surfaces that you had down there that would be different levels, different surfaces. And my immediate reaction a year or two ago was that the snow removal was going to be horrible. I mean, to try to do that. So is that still in the plans? Because I really can't tell with the material that you have there. Is it going to be pavers, or because also for someone who, not just people in wheelchairs, but people who say wear progressive glasses, as I do, and it's very easy to, when you look down, you miss those, especially those differences in levels and the way the parking is going to be less, and so it'll be harder for people to get what dropped off and things. I'm just wondering what has changed from what I had seen before.
So the crosswalk areas will be similar to the downtown. They'll meet that style, that sort of different surface treatment. So you
like in front of CVS?
Right. No, in particular to the brick crosswalks and things of that nature. The area, the plaza area, if you want to call it that, at the intersection of High and Haven Street, that will get a different type of stamped concrete type treatment, similar to maybe the CVS parking lot. Again, these are methods to, with changes of treatment, colors and styles, it is a traffic calming measure. To your point about steps and things like that, we're looking at accessibility for all of that. So the ADA accessible ramps will be flush, they'll have warning detectable pads. There's a lot of things that are missing down in that area. Some of them may not even meet the compliancy that they're supposed to today. So those would have to be upgraded as part of the road improvements.
I'm picturing how snow removal occurs, and especially with these changes like that. And in the winter, a lot of people who do the snow removal don't really know what's under there. And this damage. Remember with the bollards when they first put in, but also the pavers and the various stone materials. You want it to last, but you also don't want people tripping and falling.
Yeah, understood. I mean, we've talked extensively about snow removal, and we, if we just built everything just around snow removal, we probably wouldn't have any of these bump outs or protected parking, so.
Well, it'd be okay in California. So-
But, you know, that's something that we live in an area that we have to deal with these,
Right.
you know, these things, and snow removal and operations will have to change, and DPW is aware of that, and so we'll deal with that and change
Right.
our operations as needed.
I mean, aesthetically, it looked good, but I'm more aware of the changes in grays and blacks, and, you know, I'm just saying that I
mean,
think there are ways that we really need to, as we consider an aging population. I mean, what, you know, 7,000 something now, they expect over 60 in Reading. You know, I think we need to think about that, too. Right, thank you.
Mr. Doxer.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Mark Doxer for Precinct 1. Sharon, could you just clarify one more time, a little bit of confusion. Which of these funding sources could be used for other capital projects of similar borrowing term? I thought I understood most of them, if not all of them.
Ms. Angstrom.
So the smart growth stabilization, any capital project, the sustainability, any one of the projects that has a equal or greater borrowing term. West Street, same, but this is a similar project. And downtown water improvements, that would be a little bit interesting to do it from there, just because it's a water project. And general fund, you know, transferring from water to say like a Killam project or a Recal project, that would be a strange one. I think we could figure out if that was applicable.
So $1 million roughly could be used for any capital project with similar borrowing term out of the four that are up there.
That's fair.
Thank you.
Mr. Wise.
Yeah, building on Mark's, first of all, thank you, Tom Wise, Precinct 4. Building on Mark's question, and Sharon, maybe this is also for you. So the debt that's included in here, I seem to recall in the past, we have voted to pull that debt back. So it doesn't have to be spent. Can you confirm that we could theoretically pull the debt back and not spend this all? It doesn't have to be spent if we don't want to spend it.
Ms. Angstrom.
Are you referring to the debt that we're transferring to
Yes,
these projects?
yes.
We really do need to spend it. We're not supposed to hold it indefinitely.
But we could pay the loan, the bond off earlier, or something else along those lines?
No, we would have to transfer it to another project. So we're always looking for, when we have remainders of projects that we've completed, that we've borrowed for projects that have that equal or greater borrowing term that we could transfer it to. So we don't pay off the debt early. I mean, in fact, sometimes in bonding, you can't refund it until a certain time frame. So that we don't. It's not the same as like, oh, I'm going to pay my mortgage off early. It's not done in the same way.
So we absolutely have to spend this money in some way, shape, or form.
Yes.
Interesting.
Mr. Bacci.
Thank you, Carlo Bacci, Precinct 5. Given that I wanted to strike $200,000, you may be surprised that for $1.4 million, we're going to beautify and make pedestrian safety a lot safer in that area. So I get the rationale by spending it elsewhere, but this will beautify the town, improve public safety, not just for pedestrians, but for cars as well. So originally this was $7 million. The five of us that were on the board voted no, because we do have other priorities. And this got scaled back. The original project was much bigger and much more expensive. So not to lose the grant, we chose to scale it back, and these funds were allocated. So I don't know about the rest of us, but I know this seems kind of split for a lot of us. But if there's an amount that Ryan could get most of this done, you know, I heard the 20%, but I'm in favor of this, and not only as a board member, but as a resident that lives in that area. That area of town is horrible to look at. It's absolutely horrible. If none of you live in that area and don't travel in that area, it's pretty sad that you get off the train or get on the train and you walk into that. That's not the only reason I'm supporting this, but as a board member, I was against the $7 million, and I don't love the $4 million, but we're getting a $4 million project for $1.4 million. So I know we could, you know, potentially lose the grant. Ryan could reapply and scale this back, But let's look at it the other way. You know, I don't like to spend money like anyone else, and I hate giving money to consultants, but this is a bona fide project that will improve that area and make the area look much better than it is. So I support it. If someone wants to make an amendment to maybe lower it a bit, but it sounds like 4 million is the amount required to fulfill what's needed down there. So I just think this is the right decision. Thank you.
Mr. Talbot.
Yeah, Dave Talbot, Precinct 5. What he said is basically what I was going to say. The idea that, oh, we could spend the million somewhere else, yes, but you won't get the 2.6 million and you won't beautify your depot area, which it so badly needs. With the beautification, the safety upgrades, it's a no-brainer. Thank you.
I also agree, Karen Herrick, Precinct 8, Select Board. I also agree with what Select Board Member Carlo Bacci said. We need to support our local economy and our safety and our infrastructure. And I appreciate the hard work Ryan and staff did, because the $8 million project was really gorgeous, and it really didn't even go as far as we could have gone in this whole area around the depot. But thank you for coming back and finding a way that we can not lose this grant and improve safety in our community. Thanks.
Is there further discussion? None appearing. Are we ready for the vote? All those in favor of the motion under Article 13, please raise your hand. And those opposed? And the motion carries. Business under Article 14. I'm sorry, where was that from?
Mr. Moderator, move to adjourn.
Okay, is there a second? Second's non-debatable. All those in favor of adjourning until Thursday evening, please raise your hand. And those opposed? The motion carries. This town meeting stands adjourned until Thursday evening.